We're feeling starstruck as we orbit towards day 4 of the Fixed Ops Roundtable All Systems Go event. This supernova event is burning bright, and here to host today's event is our shooting star, Vanessa Collins.
Good morning. I'm Vanessa Collins from Northwood University. We are feeling starstruck, soaring towards the 4th day of our event. So let's make a big bang as we take one small step for man and one giant leap for the Fixed Ops Roundtable All Systems Go event. Come in, Mission Control. Simply navigate to the right-hand side of your screen to interact with our intergalactic chat. Just be sure to select everyone and not just hosts and panelists. Take on a mission to Mars with Micah Rowland from the Rezi Auto Group.
Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. I'm Sarah Vantine here with Micah Rowland, the Variable Operations Director for Rezi Auto Group. Micah, welcome to the Roundtable today.
Thank you so much for having me, Sarah. I appreciate it.
Well, Micah, you have been on the Fixed Ops Roundtable before with Ted Ings and I, and we are so excited to sit down with you today to have this one-on-one interview.
I'm excited to be here. Let's do it.
Well, Micah, first for our audience today, could you share a little bit about how you got started in automotive and what you're working on today?
So I got my start in automotive in April of 2013. I just celebrated a 12-year anniversary. I've had the honor and privilege of working for Mr. Rezi my entire time in the auto industry, which has been a tremendous, like I said, tremendous blessing. I started selling vehicles, probably just like a lot of us that are watching this. And I had no idea. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know whether I'd pass, fail, succeed. I had no idea. In fact, it was kind of a daunting thing to picture trying to convince somebody or show value in something for someone to take on something that was 30, 40, 20 grand. That seemed like a very scary thing at the time, all those years ago. And now it's just like second nature. So I started selling cars and didn't know where it would take me. So here I am. As far as my projects now, I'm a variable ops director for all six of the stores that are under his care. Um, and my direct projects now are relocating a service BDC, a centralized service BDC for all six locations, as well as maintaining IT and communication technologies between all six stores to make sure they can communicate not only with their customers, but between one another.
And Micah, what brands do you have in the Mike Rezi Auto Group?
We have three Nissan stores. We have two Hyundai stores and a Kia store, both where all six are located in the Tennessee and Georgia area. The biggest one being Mike Rezi Nissan Atlanta, right inside the perimeter of Atlanta, Georgia.
Well, and Micah, you talked about relocating the service BDC. So this has been a really in-depth project. Can you share a little bit about how this kind of came to be and how it's going?
Yeah, absolutely. So I spent my entire time in the car industry working out of our Nissan store in Cookeville, Tennessee, my first 8 years, from selling cars to sales desk to internet management to helping with marketing to doing sales training. Whole nine. My entire world was very much steeped in the variable side of the business. And at the time, I didn't even know that's what you called it. Didn't know it was called variable operations. I just knew that that's what I was doing. And towards the end of 2019, it got brought to me that, hey, we need to try to orchestrate our sales BDC to help offset some of the pressures that the service lane is feeling with appointments, calls, um, all those different things. And I have to tell you, Sarah, I didn't even know where to start with that. I just knew that I had people that were good on the phones, so perhaps they could book service too. That's just all I knew about it. And that came from actually taking a visit to your alma mater, the Scott Clark Auto Group, where you had a centralized call center inside of the Toyota store there. I had never seen anything like that before in my life. In fact, I think the 3 or 4 days I spent with you, I was just completely dumbfounded that that was even a thing. But the 3 or 4 days I spent with you, I took a lot of information from that as a way to try to segue into building a call center of our own. So our first stint was just making sure that an agent could, at the drop of a hat in our current state, take a sales call, take a service call without having to think about how to field it. So that was my whole first objective when our call center was in its infancy. I then got asked several months later if I would consider moving to Atlanta so we could start that project in full, because there was no way it was going to service out of that little Nissan store. When I came to Mike Rezi Nissan, the world was my oyster. I had a lot of road to run to try to figure out how it was going to work. I walked into the room that's not too far from where I'm sitting right now, to realize that there were 12 phones in a room and there was only 1 or 2 people answering them. And they were all ringing in different spots. There were sales calls ringing to the parts department. There were parts calls ringing to the service lane. There were accounting calls ringing into the finance office. So my first objective was to figure out how the phone system even worked in that building, and just to start taking service calls for one store. So I went from hiring, reorganizing a room, getting computers installed, figuring out how the phone tree worked. And then for the next year, we just got professional and perfected our one store service process. How we communicate with service lanes, how we book appointments, what's the time frame for a diag appointment, just real basic things, which in today's world sometimes is a tough thing to wrap your head around. Just the basics in general, just customer care in general. Shortly after that, our Hyundai store in Cookeville was having a lot of problems with overflow calls that couldn't get handled. Voicemail boxes were piling up. They were seeing more cars they had time to service, and that was just thankful to variable growth. I mean, that's a good problem to have, trying to solve how you're going to take care of customers. And at the time, we didn't have interbranch dialing. We didn't have ways to transfer a customer call from our call center to a service lane. But the one thing that couldn't go unnoticed was just how are we going to take care of these customer calls? They're not going to stop coming, and we don't have time to get to them. And CSI is going to fail as a byproduct of these things we can't seem to handle. So I ended up developing a clever way to get calls transferred back and forth. It took a little bit of nuance from my call center, but I was able to transfer calls just via direct DID. I couldn't do like just dial an extension and hope something connects. I had to have my agents memorize phone numbers to transfer customer calls to service lanes. It was pretty impressive. And then after overcoming those roads, we eventually integrated our Nissan store in Cookeville, our Kia store in Knoxville, and then we integrated what was our newest point, our Hyundai store in McDonough. All that came down to a point to where all of those calls, we were taking 400 or 500 calls a day. It got to where it was extremely cumbersome for 7 or 8 people to handle. That 7 or 8 people became 6 people. Sometimes it was 7, sometimes it was 5. And all of that success mounted to 2023 and 2024, where we saw price of gas double, home interest rates double, what you paid at the grocery store double. It was just hard to hire people for, $15, $16 an hour and ask them to balance a 400 or 500 call day and then not have any outbound production behind it. We would hire people, barely learn their first name, even though we had a great culture, but couldn't convince them to stay because there was work involved in what we were doing. And until production got back to where it could be, you couldn't sell the world. So we were presented with a unique opportunity to transplant our call center at the beginning of 2024 to our old Hyundai building in Cookeville. That dealership now has a brand new point, brand new building, brand new facility, and we had real estate that we could use for something new. So over the course of these past 90 to 120 days, we've been working on transplanting our Atlanta call center into rural Cookeville, Tennessee, where our call center is literally on an island all by itself. We're not inside of a dealership. We don't have to worry about a sales staff that comes in and out wondering if they can book appointments or if we can make their calls for them, or a service advisor staff that thinks their store takes precedent over the other 5 that we service, or a service manager who thinks their store may be more important than the others. We didn't have to worry about any of those distractions. And as of last week, we made that transplant in full. And I got to tell you, the whole first week was a success, and I can only hope and pray it continues in that format. And best part about it is none of my former team had to worry about finding jobs elsewhere. I was able to transplant all of them somewhere else inside of our group at either the same pay or more pay than what they were currently making. So far, God bless, everything is working as it should. Although it's the car business, there's going to be another hurdle to overcome tomorrow, I'm sure.
Well, Micah, it's incredible to hear just the evolution of how the BDC really got started and how you're seeing all this success that's been building over the years. You touched on the outbound piece, and I want to come back to that for a second, because I know that has been an incredible component that you've been adding and working on for the stores. So talk to us a little bit about some of the success you're seeing on the outbound communication side.
So it was really tough to carve out a very strategic outbound schedule at our Atlanta call center because of the way our phone system was connected with the dealership we were in. So you couldn't break everything apart to make sure that actual outbound work was being done as it should. It was mostly just a plug and play. Hey, here's a list of recalls for X store. I know your objective is 50 calls or 60 calls or whatever it is a day, but I need you to get to as many as you can between outbounds. So a lot of that you would see semi-successes, and then other times you wouldn't see any success just because of the influx of inbound traffic that we would get. So instead of me pushing for those expectations or those standards, we would work on things where we could. So the way I carved it out is I took priority to its max meaning, which means at the end of the day, if I want to be an outbound BDC and I can't control the inbound flux because I have little to no control of my current phone system, what do I have to do that immediately takes place over everything else? After service follow-up became a huge priority because if we don't have good CSI, nothing matters. So making sure that closed customer ROs are touched every day in some function from every store that we service. Specifically, customers that had bought their cars recently. So new car customers that have vehicles that are 2, 3, max 4 years old. The next outbound project that had to be done every single day with no exceptions was special order parts. At the end of the day, parts can't sit on shelves. They have to move, they have to go. And then after that, everything else came. So whether it was following up with missed appointments, making sure that appointments got confirmed the other day. We use Brook at all of our locations, making sure that people who actually book through Brook understand that they book through Brook and that we're still expecting to see them whenever their appointment is. And so we just made a cadence on what takes priority over everything else. Moving the call center to our newest location, one of the big benefits outside of being on an island is we have complete phone system autonomy, which means as we train these new agents, as we get them into a regular cadence, I can create inbound and outbound teams, meaning once I have a full staff, which I'm very close to having, I can take agents 1, 2, 3, and 4 Monday through Friday of next week. I can assign each of them an outbound task, and they don't have to worry about their phones ringing inbound, to where all day long their whole job is outbound production, outbound production, outbound production. And then I can reverse it the next week. That way everybody's coached and trained on the same projects that everybody else would be coached and trained on. So, and that's something that really reinvigorates me in the car business, knowing that kind of success can be had again, and then knowing that you've got the ability to control the controllables in your area. So that's one of the ways we're fixing it and trying to make it better. And we hope that takes hold.
Well, it's so exciting, Micah, and congratulations on all the success that you're seeing. And I'm curious to hear, when we come back for our next Fixed Ops Roundtable event, we'll definitely have to have you back and see how everything has been going over the, over the months as you continue to build out this new call center. So, in just kind of a final question for our audience today, a lot of the listeners are thinking about fixed operations and looking at how they're structuring, the focus that their dealership is really looking at for the back half of the year. What would you suggest for fixed ops directors, BDC directors that are listening today? What do you feel is something that they need to be paying attention to right now?
I would make sure, it's things that we struggle with in our own stores day to day. I would make sure that every customer who gives you the time to visit your service center is completely communicated with about the status of their vehicle. We're in 2025, and the thing we still run into more than anything else is status updates on when my car will be ready or what's happening with my car. The thing we find overwhelmingly, especially in our little circle, and I'm sure there's people who are listening to this who can agree, customers don't always need to know exactly when their vehicle is going to be done. They just want to know that the process is being moved along in the right direction. Or even if it's not the right direction, what's the holdup that's keeping it from moving to the next step? So I think the word communication is more paramount than it's ever been. We live in a world where communication is right at our fingertips all the time, but yet somehow we still fail at these little things that can be made easy just by making sure that you control, like I said before, what you can control, which is if you've given your customer a time frame on when they can expect their first update, we should honor that. Also, when their car gets checked in, tell them what their service is going to be all about and what they can expect. I think if you can solve those two things, or at least work to be better at those things, your marketing, your customer communication, your team synergy, all of those things will get better as a byproduct of that and that alone.
Micah, it's been incredible to hear all of your insights today. I took away a lot of great information, and it's been so cool to learn a little bit more about you and all the success that you've created with the Rezi Auto Group.
Well, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here, and thank you so much for having me.
Everyone, on behalf of Ted Ings, Micah Rowland is here with us today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable, the Variable Operations Director for Rezi Auto Group. Stay tuned. We've got more segments coming up next.
Unlock the industry's most comprehensive service technology platform. Xtime delivers a simple, fully transparent digital experience for both consumers and dealers. Get approvals on additional service recommendations in as fast as 7 minutes and earn 46% more dollars per repair order with Xtime. Dealerships and OEMs have long relied on Xtime's leading position in service scheduling, multi-point inspections, service marketing, and the consumer check-in experience. Drive revenue and profitability with our proven service technology that enhances the service experience from start to finish. Gain consumer confidence and elevate the staff experience with solutions that drive convenience and speed. Set the tone for the ultimate service experience with Xtime Schedule. Maximize your team's productivity and keep customers coming back with convenient online scheduling features and robust shop capacity management with Schedule. Grow fixed operations with every appointment using Xtime Engage, creating superior personalized experiences for your customers. Boost efficiency and profit with seamless check-ins, convenient status updates, and fast checkouts. And avoid frustrating bottlenecks with connected data from back-office processes to fixed ops. Improve your service department throughput and yield with Xtime Inspect, a fully integrated digital multi-point inspection tool. Obtain faster ASR approvals and higher profits, increasing RO value, instilling confidence in customers, and improving staff productivity with enhanced time-saving technician processes. Generate the demand you need at the right time from the right audience with Xtime Invite. Maximize revenue potential with multi-channel marketing capabilities through AI and service automations that drive performance marketing, precision targeting, and personalized outreach. A more profitable service experience requires a better service platform. Xtime gives you the comprehensive tools you need to enhance every communication touchpoint, resulting in satisfied customers and dealership staff to ensure ROI and increase likelihood of repeat business. Xtime is a part of a powerful ecosystem of retail solutions from Cox Automotive. Power on Retail 360.
Explore the wonders of the galaxy with Kyle Newsome, along with our automotive astronauts, Ed Roberts and Katrina Ness.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. I'm Katrina Ness, joined by Ted Ings and Ed Roberts. Today, our guest is Kyle Newsome, and we will be talking about fixed ops training and the importance behind it. Thank you for joining us, Kyle.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Excited to have all of you here, including Ed Roberts and Katrina Ness up at Northwood University at the International Auto Show. So to kind of set the stage, if I may, the importance of fixed operations, training in fixed ops, focusing on the people. Kyle, where do we begin? Because that's a huge amount of territory to cover.
Yeah, and I think the reality is, we kind of view it as training is really the game behind the game, right? nobody has ever built a successful company, successful team without investing in the people. And really the greatest multiplier in any business is developing other people. And it's the importance of really investing in that team, empowering those individuals to understand, what do we expect out of them? What's the standard in the store? And then what tools and resources do we provide those individuals, all the way from the service advisors, meeting and greeting customers on that service drive every day, to those managers, to those FODs over multiple stores. It's just so critical to have something that they can use as a tool and a resource and a guide to help them through that journey and path. So we're very passionate about it. Obviously, that's why we have the company that we have, but we're excited to train and develop people.
So Kyle, should training be viewed as an expense or as an investment to dealers, and in your eyes as well?
Well, I think the reality is it is an investment. Now, it needs to be viewed as an investment, but think of the cost of not doing it, right? And just what goes into training and developing your people. And yes, it is an investment. That's the reality. But what's it costing you to not train and develop those people? And especially in our industry, you guys know this better than me, it's the turnover rate. We're usually above 50% in a lot of our dealerships on that service drive. Well, that true cost of turnover is extremely high when we actually pencil that out to what it costs us to replace that individual on the service drive. And hey, maybe if they were invested in and we developed that individual and they felt supported, right, and we really helped get them to the level they wanted to get to, they'd probably stick around. The reality is most people don't leave a winning team. Well, if we can get some pretty quick wins, have that team that's winning, good synergy, everybody's communicating, we have clear targets and goals, the odds of that person leaving or having that turnover issue greatly drops. And it happens by investing in them.
Ed, I see you taking some notes there. I took some notes on the cost of not doing the training. This is right in your swim lane, Ed Roberts.
Absolutely. And Cal touched on both of them. We talked about training, then he talked about developing people. And nobody wants to go to training, but they do want to be developed. Mm-hmm. And then tying the expense element into it, it is an expense. And that expense is an investment in our people, but it allows us to manage that expense, because when we can shift it from reducing that turnover rate down, then we're reducing the expense somewhere else. So anytime you can manage one expense to control another one, then everybody wins from that. And like Cal said, nobody wants to leave a winning team. And we can give the vision, but if we don't give them the how on how to do it, then we can't bring that vision to life. So we have to develop our people to bring the why to life.
Kyle, can I ask you for some background on how we got here? What is your background and what led to the formation of your company?
Yeah, so my background is automotive fixed operations from an early age. I grew up in a family environment that owned and operated multiple different businesses, but one of those businesses was automotive. And so I grew up in this industry. And then really, we'll call it my professional career, the last 2 decades, were with Larry Van Tile and the Van Tile Group, and then went through the acquisition with Berkshire Hathaway Automotive. So I've always been on that fixed operations side. And really, it's, when you're part of that large organization, I was blessed to have a lot of people in my life that, I still call mentors today that have really helped me get to where I am now. But the moment that I realized how important the communication piece was with the employees, because in the beginning, right, when you're a younger manager, and when I first took over a store, I was in my early 20s, right? Now, the good news is I thought I knew everything because I was in my early 20s. The bad news is I realize now that I didn't know anything, right? But the reality is the moment that I started understanding that having that transparent communication, setting the standard, right, and then defining really what is that vision. We might have it on the wall, we might have a mission statement posted on the wall somewhere, but really have we clearly defined it for those individuals? And so the moment that I started doing those things is the moment, I don't want to say, it got easy, but it did get a lot easier, right? We started growing and developing people and created some amazing friendships that are still around today. And so in 2023, we decided, hey, let's start our own company and let's do something a little bit different in this space in automotive. And so that's where we created Visperio. So I've got two partners in the company. One of those is Tom Finnan, similar background to myself, had a high role at Larry Van Tile Group and then Berkshire Hathaway Automotive on that corporate side. And then my other partner is Vic Keller. And Vic, been in the business a long time, had multiple automotive companies, has built, I think, 10 different companies from the ground up in the automotive space alone. And then, of course, some of those got sold to Berkshire Hathaway during that acquisition. So we all came together and decided, hey, we want to do something here that's a little bit different. And so we've spent the last 2 years really building and developing our Performance Academy to have a digital tool that can help develop your people. We give you all the tools, all the resources, more importantly, the accountability and the feedback loop, which is another huge thing, is actually taking that feedback from those employees and giving them, that open feedback loop to where they feel supported, that they can speak up. Because how often do we send them to training, or they go do training in our industry in general, right? They go do training and maybe it's on the walk around today or whatever subject that person happens to be training on. Well, what happened after training? What was the executables, right? How are we holding them accountable? Was the manager even involved in the training? A lot of times not. A lot of times there's a big disconnect there. They know they went and did walk around training today, but what did Johnny get out of it? And what does Sally really need to do over the next 7 days to make sure that we actually execute on what we just learned? And so that was a lot of what we built into the system is, hey, how do we do this in a digital form? Because we don't come to the dealerships. We don't come on a service drive and train service advisors. We are a 100% virtual company. And so what we do is we give the manager all the tools and the resources, because let's be honest, who should really be training and coaching those employees every single day? Probably the manager. They're there every day, right? Now, the reality is they might need some help and some guidance. Maybe they haven't been trained as well, which I think is a whole nother topic, right? And especially in our industry, we're seeing a lot of turnover, a lot of new managers coming up, a lot of that kind of peer to leader. And I think so often in our business, we promote to failure. And what I mean is we have a shop foreman that's amazing, right? Or we have an advisor that's amazing. And then we toss them the keys one day. And inevitably, what happens? They try to emulate what they saw, or maybe they didn't like that past manager, so they're going to do something totally different. And I think just providing that person with that development is key in that role. And I think Ed can probably chime in here, and he knows better than all of us, right, on what it really takes to build this internally. And I think that's the biggest point. It's like, what are we really doing for that team to empower them and develop them?
Well, you're exactly right. When we move someone into that leadership role that we never trained to begin with, and they've kind of ground their way there, they push through the obstacles, and they think, well, that's all the other person needs to do. They need to do what I did to get there. Well, those are the exceptions. That's why they're sitting in that role, and that's what I tell people all the time. There's a reason why you're here, and there's a reason why we have the others doing theirs, because we've overcome some of those obstacles. Now we got to help them overcome those obstacles. But usually what gets in the way of any kind of training is pride. We feel like I got it. Well, pride will always get in the way of what our true opportunities are. So it builds those speed bumps and makes them barriers. Yeah. And so we have to address it from that angle, that I'm here to develop you. I'm here to allow you the opportunity to take over my job. And when they hear it from that aspect, rather than you just trying to wring more out of them, then it opens them up a bit that, hey, yes, that's exactly what I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's such a great point, Ed, because we see that all the time. And one of the things that we built in, and we've evolved to this, right? We learned this the hard way, like much great lessons are. And what we do, we provide that digital platform, our Performance Academy, but we also do biweekly one-on-one coaching sessions with those managers. Because we have, going back to when I was in my early 20s, had my first store, I might have had a little bit of that ego. It was probably more insecurity, to be honest with you. And I didn't always want to go to my GM and say, hey, I'm not quite sure what this is. What should I do here? Right. I mean, you're sitting in a chair. You kind of feel like, okay, I need to know this. Right. Well, just because I have the title doesn't mean I understand the role, you know? And I think having this tool and resource, that's really what we wanted to make sure is, hey, how do we make them feel comfortable, to your point, to speak up? Because they can tell us anything. We're not going to go run to the GM, of course. What we're going to do is help you figure it out, create whatever you need to create, and let's go forward, right? What do we need to execute on? Let's do it.
Yeah, definitely. We talked a little bit about, the importance of culture and having that good environment. And Kyle, you mentioned, how you would go back and not have your ego, and you're learning from where you are now. So in your training, what steps from the top down would you guys give for a dealership to build a culture that just goes beyond the perks and it truly, invests in people and the employees there?
Yeah. And, culture is always one of those hot button words, right? Everybody knows culture. We've heard it forever, but I'd love somebody to define it for me.
Right.
I think there's so many different things to think about it. And the way I always think about culture is I always translate culture. And this came from one of my mentors, actually, Vic Keller, one of our partners as well. But he always talks about culture as community and really transitioning that into a community and building your community. Because if you think about it, right, we really are building a community within our dealerships. And when we think about it, we have the mindset around community. Well, I'm a little protective of that community. I want to make sure that things are right. My neighbor over here, I want to make sure they're taken care of. I want to make sure that we're setting everybody up for success. Now, that doesn't mean that, the Saturday lunches and the ping pong table in the break room or whatever you have in your dealership aren't great things. Those are great things, right? But at the heart of it, if we can ensure that our employees feel safe, they feel supported, right, and they feel invested in, well, that's going to build a pretty strong community.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
And the community you've built at Bozard is second to none.
Well, and I can help elaborate a little bit on how to define that culture, because yes, we overutilize the word culture, but ultimately there is foundational elements of what culture is. It's leadership style. How are we going to do this? And how we're going to, it's the core values, it's the mission and the vision combined together. It's how we communicate. It's the environment that we provide for our people. It's all those things. There's 10, 12 things that if you want to duplicate a culture somewhere, those are the things that you have to be similar with. Now, every store out there, every business out there is culture driven. Some are that magnetic culture that you want to be a part of, and some is that repelling culture that you can't get away from fast enough. Yeah. But ultimately, and I could go on down the list of how we recognize people or some of those elements, the teamwork and all that stuff. But whether I list all those things out there or not, as the audience listens to that, they think, okay, well, that's what I didn't want, whether it's leadership style, whether it's because there wasn't a clear vision, whether it's whatever. But all it takes is one of those disruptions to erode it. And it's our job every single day to cultivate our culture. But you got to have the elements of what you're cultivating, because the culture is the byproduct of how you do things. It's not what you chase after. It's the byproduct of what comes after you do the right elements and chase those foundational pieces that builds the foundation on what you're working on.
Yeah, and I think you hit it right on the head. It is really designing. I talk about it as, hey, can I engineer the perfect environment? And I think that's what you've done, right? And that's what you're talking about is, hey, can I engineer the perfect environment? I know if I do these 10 things and I do these 10 things perfectly, I can almost guarantee that outcome that I'm looking for. But it's understanding, okay, what are those 10 things and what do we really need to do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, setting expectations, it's all the things. But part of those 10 things is developing our people. It's 100%. Developing that bench. It's having those ready to fall in line behind us so that if someone's out, it's seamless, where things continue to flow, things continue to go forward, rather than let's wait till they get back, or they're not here or whatever else and things stop. It's keeping that momentum going. And that one thing itself is what's missing in a lot of places out there is we look at training or development as something we did. Well, we did that. We brought somebody in last month.
Yeah.
Well, it's never something we did. It's always something that we do. And it's no different than sports. And I use this analogy a lot. Tom Brady played professional football for 20 something years, but there was never a week between games that he didn't practice.
Yeah.
He was constantly developing his skills to get better at the game. And that's what we have to do. It's a constant piece. So it's never something you did. It's always something you do. And if you can't ask yourself, what am I doing right now to develop my people? Then we're already backing up and we're not cultivating the culture that we desire.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. I think that's perfect because I always remind advisors, right? It costs you absolutely nothing to practice. Unlike me or your coworker or your spouse, right? Have some fun and practice with your team. But it's costing you everything when you're practicing on your customers. But that's what's happening every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kyle, I got to ask you, does the coach at the dealership who works for the store, do they need a coach? Do we all need a coach at some point to take us along in our career?
I think we all need a coach, a mentor. I mean, I couldn't imagine not having somebody, it's like walking into the room and being the smartest person. How terrible would that be? You're probably in the wrong room, right?
Yeah, very much.
Yeah, not everyone can be the player. So there has to be a coach that coaches the players, that makes the players better. And that's the whole idea behind it. And we lose sight of that. We just tell them, hey, go do your job, go do this. And we don't set expectations. They don't know what good looks like. We don't tell them they did a good job when they did do a good job. And all those things comes back to, are we really coaching our players? Mm-hmm. And if we're not, then we're certainly not developing them. And if we're not developing them, then we are preparing them for down the road motors or wherever else they may end up landing. And then you're going to question yourself, well, was that a wasted expense? Well, it was, because we wasn't consistent at it.
Yeah. And we catch them, to your point, you hit on it earlier about genuine recognition, right? I know that's something that you're big on, is really genuine recognition versus those gotcha moments. Hey, if I'm the manager and I'm walking through the shop, do people openly kind of wave and everybody's good, or are they kind of hiding in the corner, because the only time I ever come out to the shop is to, weaponize some KPI or get on somebody or have a gotcha moment versus that genuine recognition.
Yeah. Right. Kyle, talk to us about, the view of the differences between being nice and being kind in leadership.
Yeah. So, and you'll see it on some of our stuff, but our kind of mantra, our slogan is embrace kindness, ignite greatness. And really the core behind all that is, we love that concept of kind leadership, because I think what happens a lot, nice and kind, they're related, they're cousins, right? But they're very different, right? If I'm going to be nice to somebody, maybe I'm not really holding them accountable to what I really need them to do. But if I'm going to be a kind leader, I'm going to set those clear expectations. I'm going to communicate extremely well, right? And I'm going to guide them and help them along the way. But I'm also going to make sure I hold them accountable when something does go a little sideways. I can kind of realign them and get them back into shape, right? And it's just having that really courage as a manager, especially as a younger manager coming in. Maybe you're going from that peer to leader standpoint to where, hey, I used to be a peer, now I'm their leader. Well, a lot of times we fall into that nice category where, hey, I don't want to say anything. Yeah, I know Johnny really messed that up, but let's just see what happens next time. Well, if you're a kind leader, Johnny knows what he's supposed to be doing. Now let's go have a conversation. It doesn't have to be a beatdown session. It's just a conversation that says, hey, how can I help you here? This is kind of our standard, right? This is what we do here. How can I help you make sure that we fall into this standard? Because I kind of saw you with Mrs. Jones, and we need to tweak that just a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's a element of where we're going to chat with them separately. And so let's call it a one-on-one. And when we do a one-on-one, we're going to set expectations. But in that same one-on-one, we're going to say, what can I do to help you do your job better? And that leads down the path of what our opportunities are.
If our audience, Kyle, here we go. Here's the Fixed Ops audience listening to you now, wants to learn more about Visperio, your Performance Fixed Ops Academy, and what you can possibly do for them. How do they reach out to you? How do they take the next step? How do they learn more?
Yeah, so we're on social media, LinkedIn, pretty presently. You can look up, Kyle Newsome on LinkedIn, and for our website, it's www.visperio. That's visperio.com, and then we've even got a couple free training videos, things like that, on there as well. But check us out, reach out to either Tom, myself, and we can help you out.
All right, Kyle, thank you for coming on today and telling us more about you, insight into your background, what you do, what you believe in. Took a lot of notes, and Ed, I think we both took a lot of notes, as well as Katrina here.
Absolutely, and it's glad to have you out there, and I'm glad the audience is getting to hear about you, because that is what we miss the most inside of these stores is the development of people.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Everybody, Kyle Newsome, he's the big name on the street right now, Visperio Performance. You can find him on social media, on the web, and of course here on the Fixed Ops Roundtable. I want to thank Kyle. I want to thank Katrina Ness and Ed Roberts for being with us today. Kyle Newsome, everybody, from Visperio, here with us today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Every day, repair orders hold the key to profitability, but are they unlocking their full potential? Disconnected data, missed opportunities, a blind spot in performance optimization. Introducing Repair Order Insights, Dinatron's game-changing technology that transforms raw repair order data into actionable intelligence. No more guesswork, no more gaps, just data-driven decisions that put you miles ahead. From service managers to dealer principals, ROI arms every decision maker with the power to drive more profit, make faster decisions, and have total visibility.
It takes everything Dinatron's been giving us to make us smarter and does it faster and does it better. I think what excites me about ROI is that it's going to help us optimize more effectively our parts and labor pricing and give us viewership of what is fundamentally bringing down our effective labor rates in real time so that we can activate immediately.
Time is precious. And the last thing I want is my service manager sitting in their office, pulling reports, dissecting numbers, when all that can be done for them and on one platform. So I know every dollar, every penny, every tenth of an hour is very valuable in the fixed operations side. And certainly with what's going on in our world and country and pricing and inflations and stuff, it's more important that we capitalize on everything. And the only way that I know to do that is to have the Dinatron partners at our fingertips and have the data. That's the only way.
And now it's your turn. Are you ready to bring the future of repair order insights to dealerships everywhere? Let's go. Let's make an impact.
Scour a new solar system of opportunity with Brett Sutherlin from Sutherlin Automotive up next.
Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. I'm Sarah Vantine here with Brett Sutherlin. Today, we are going to learn some interesting things about Sutherlin Automotive Group and then also Brett's career. Brett, I'm so excited to have you on the Fixed Ops Roundtable today.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm excited to be here.
Well, just to dive right into some of the conversation, would love to just share a little bit more with our audience today about who you are and where Sutherlin Automotive is located.
So we have currently 3 stores, 2 in Montgomery, Alabama, Lexus and Toyota, and we have a Subaru store in Knoxville, Tennessee. We have a 4th store we're about to close on, also in the Southeast real soon.
Excellent. And Brett, how many years have y'all been in business?
Sutherlin's been in business since 1972, so we've been in the Southeast for quite some time.
Excellent. Well, Brett, I know we have a lot to cover today. So just to kick things off, we're right in almost halfway through 2025, and not every dealership right now is where they'd like to be this year. And so I'd love to hear from you. What strategies can dealerships be utilizing to have a successful 3rd and 4th quarter?
I think it's all, with the tariffs looming, with change in the air, I really think it's about used car acquisition and fixed operations. I mean, I think those are the 2 that I'm concentrating on the most right now. I'm fortunate in having 3 of the best brands in the country with Lexus, Toyota, and Subaru. So our day supply is relatively low and has been. So, I don't know that it's going to affect us from a new car perspective much. But, for the last 12 plus 24 months, our main focus has been on acquisition of used cars, and we're not buying from auctions any longer. We have our own strategy where we're currently getting about 8% of all the ROs that we write on a monthly basis. 8% of those, we either trade the customer out of the car or buy the car from the customer. So our emphasis has been on used car acquisition and doing that direct from consumer, mainly through our service departments. And that has been a huge win for us and something that we're hyper focused on right now. As I said, along with fixed operations. I mean, that is I think that's what every dealer needs to do right now, especially in uncertain times.
A follow-up question, if I may, regarding the acquisition process. So a lot of, dealers today have struggled with that, the sales handoff when the customer is coming into the service drive. And, there's that fine line between, when is the right time to ask in this process. So could you share a little bit more? Like, what is some of the strategies that you have implemented to make that program so successful?
So about 3.5 years ago, we started building our own software. I looked at all the software that was in the market. I've also founded some technology companies in automotive that we've sold to private equity. So we have a software background and we have readily, access to programmers, et cetera. So we started developing our own software. where we are appraising 100% of the cars that come through our service department. And the key is just what you said. A lot of people lose credibility when they have a salesperson present this to customers, because salespeople aren't as trusted as a service advisor. So I think our success lies in letting customers know that if they come to any Sutherlin dealership, they're going to get an actual cash value for their vehicle. And with our software, we can change that in real time based on market conditions. So if we're low on, say, Toyota Camrys at our Toyota store, we can say, hey, we're pulling MMR from Manheim. We're pulling Black Book data. We can say, we need Camrys badly. We're going to go ahead and offer 115% of MMR, because we know we're getting a vehicle from a customer, that has serviced with us. That car is worth more money than any auction car by a long shot. So we have our service advisors present to our customers two options. Like if you were the customer, we would present to you, this is what it's going to cost to repair your car. But another option we have is to trade this car in, or we will buy this car from you. And here's an actual cash offer. The service advisor has more credibility than the salesperson. So when the service advisor is presenting both of these to our customer, they have a lot more credibility, and the customer is much more open-minded.
That makes a lot of sense, Brett, because you're so spot on. It's always that struggle of, introducing this new person into the equation, and then tensions run high because, the customer's not sure what's going on and why this individual is part of it. But when somebody is handling that from start to finish and really cultivating that process, I imagine, the service advisors have a lot more frequency with a lot of your customers. So it is a trusted resource.
100%. And anytime you have a handoff, the chances of it going wrong or the customer losing interest go up exponentially.
Oh, good. 100%. And, another big focus that I think is really interesting, Sutherlin Automotive, you have a big focus on management training and empowering your leadership team. So I'd love for you to share a little bit more about that and why it's such an important initiative, and some of the success stories you're seeing.
Turnover is the kiss of death in the car business. We try and recruit from places that have lower turnover, people that want to be in the business. Last week, I spent 4 days at Northwood with students, speaking to a group of students, teaching a class, and knowing that you can encounter or meet kids like at Northwood that want to go into the business makes all the difference. We focus on young talent at all our stores, and we quickly promote from within, but day one, start training, whether it be a salesperson, whether it be a finance manager, cross-training across multiple departments. We found that through this technique and promoting from within, our turnover is dramatically lower than the industry standard. I saw a stat just the other day that salespeople are turning 40% every year. I mean, that is impossible to have a positive growth strategy or projection or strategy and have that type of turnover. I mean, if you're serious about growing your business, becoming more profitable, and serving customers better, that is the first thing you have to get under control. So it is a huge emphasis in our organization.
Well, and I'm so glad that you mentioned Northwood University. We have had such an incredible involvement with them at the Fixed Ops Roundtable, and just the caliber of students that are coming out of Northwood, and all of their, all of the knowledge that they're able to gain about dealership operations, about fixed operations, about sales. It's just unparalleled. So, and just to kind of piggyback on what you said in that last statement about hiring talent, young talent, and looking for people that are new to automotive or maybe just starting their careers, that's been a big topic of conversation in the industry. There's been some kind of mixed strategies where people, on their postings for job boards say, minimum 5 years experience minimum, XYZ in this software. So how do you really cultivate some of this young talent? Do you have, different programs, milestones that they have to check in when they come to the organization?
We do. We have a management training program that is open to, especially Northwood kids, but the younger generation that are serious about starting a career. The problem with the car business is so many people say, I'm going to do it as a stop along my journey. And that's not what you want to attract. You want to attract people that see themselves here, see themselves progressing, want to be a general manager, want to be a managing partner or a dealer. That's what you're looking for. And that's the breath of fresh air we get from Northwood. Northwood, these students start day one in automotive classes. They really start with that knowledge, and they're constantly wanting more. They're wanting to advance. They know that they want to be in the auto industry. They are dedicated to it. And by us having a management training program where we take these kids through every department of the dealership, we pay them, we provide housing for them, which is a huge hot button for Northwood kids. Second, we put them on a guarantee. We don't want them to have to worry about making money. We want them to truly absorb what we have to offer and learn each department. 9 times out of 10, the kids far exceed that guarantee and make a lot more money from a commission perspective. But they go in with that understanding that Sutherlin has my back. They have a successful program. I went to Northwood and graduated in 95. And we've been recruiting actively since then. And it has made a major difference in our organization. I would say our turnover is a fraction of what most dealerships are.
It's incredible to hear that emphasis, Brett. And you touched on the pieces with going between multiple departments and really learning the entire ecosystem of how a customer experiences the dealership. I want to pivot a little bit, but focus on fixed operations for a second, because service and parts, it's really top of mind at a lot of dealerships, especially with some of the uncertainty on new cars and even in pre-owned vehicles. Customers, we're seeing the average age in a household and across the industry, average of 13 years old for a vehicle is what people are holding on to. So as service and parts continue to be a big conversation in the industry, what do you see as some of the most important components that dealerships should be focusing on with their fixed ops initiatives?
Sarah, 99% of dealerships focus on sales. If you go into a dealership, odds are in service, they're not having the same focus that they are on sales in collaboration, pulling the team together, letting the technicians know, letting the parts counter people know, letting everyone in the fixed ops department know what your goals are and what your expectations are. We're meeting weekly with every one of our department heads and keeping a pulse on that industry. And when you actually hold people accountable, you hold technicians accountable for hours turned, you hold everyone in the dealership accountable, and they know what your goals are month in and month out, you're much more likely to have synergy and chemistry in that department. You do that in sales all the time. Everyone knows what your goal is. Everyone knows what you expect them to sell. They know what your objective is with Toyota, with Subaru. They know that number. 9 times out of 10, and you talk to dealers day in and day out, 9 times out of 10, if you go into a service department and ask your technician, they feel left out, they feel abandoned, they have no idea what the fixed operation goals are. They have no clue. So I think you have to have the same collaboration in fixed ops that you do in the front end of the business.
I want to go back to the technician piece for a minute, because this has actually been a very interesting development in the conversation across the industry. There's been some very large dealer groups that have made some very public announcements that they're going to be cracking down on technicians and no longer are they gonna, just kind of have the keys to the kingdom, so to speak. But, it's also this challenge that we see in conversations at the Fixed Ops Roundtable. There's a lot of competition to recruit technicians, and vehicles are getting so much more complex, and there's so many different layers to that customer experience where the technician is becoming so important. So, in touching on those pieces with informing your technicians about what the goals are and really involving them in your daily operations and that planning and understanding the objectives you have, how do you strike that balance with recruiting and also, retaining technicians that are doing a great job?
I was at our Subaru store recently. We have a waiting list of technicians wanting to join us. I mean, literally every other dealership in the Knoxville area is run so old school. The quality of technicians, as cars have become more sophisticated, you have to have a different type of technician. Recruiting technical minds has changed. Technical schools have changed. You have to be involved at the ground level in recruiting. You have to be at the sponsoring events at the technical college. I mean, that is a major, major factor. If you look now at what a technician looked like 10 years ago, they had no idea of software. They had absolutely no idea from a technology perspective because they didn't need to. That's not what powered these cars. As we continue to see adoption of electric vehicles, your technician is going to look more like a software programmer than a technician. I mean, it is changing, and it's already changed. We, again, are recruiting young talent. And when you're recruiting young people out of technical colleges and you're sponsoring events at these places and you're involved on a local level, it makes all the difference in people wanting to work with you. 9 times out of 10, dealers are treating them as grease monkeys. They're treating them as the old school technician of 25 years ago. And that's just not the case. And when you can make that change and have a true plan in place to recruit, just like I spoke about recruiting at Northwood, but from the tech side or the technician side, it makes all the difference in the world. You have better loyalty. You have word of mouth. You have collaboration. I mean, you have people that want to stay in your business and progress.
It's incredible to hear all of the strategies that you have implemented, and congratulations again on all the success that you're seeing across your different dealerships and brands. And, going back into what you were talking about a second ago with, removing really the silos from the sales and service department, not having all the information available to only sales, including the entire dealership in this collaboration. This has been another really big topic in the industry because customers are feeling that friction when it comes to, sales and service being on different pages, and in some cases, totally different technologies for communication in a dealership. So I'd love to get your perspective on how Sutherlin Automotive is really creating a more seamless experience for customers transitioning between sales and service.
We were a larger group. We sold 7 Nissan dealerships. I think our timing was impeccable with that. We started selling these 3 years ago. And I was at our largest Nissan dealership, which is at the time was the largest in the country, in Fort Myers, Florida. And this is 3.5 years ago. I was there early in the morning. I probably 7 o'clock. And just observed, was in the customer lounge. And then about 7:30, the customer lounge was filling up. And all of a sudden, your old school salespeople started showing up to work. They were harassing the hell out of the customers to try and get them to trade their car. I mean, that is not what you want. What that's doing is it's pushing people away from your service department. In a 3-year lifespan of a customer, you're making roughly $4,000 in the transaction. you're making $32,000 over the next 3 years from the life of that customer, and you're driving that customer away. So you're tripping over pennies. You're driving customers out of your service department. You're creating a tremendous amount of friction. And at that point, I said, this has to change. So we developed heavily in our service departments. We have UVI at all of our departments. We use that in conjunction with the software that we've developed. It is a phenomenal tool. You can drive your car through UVI, have a detailed report that we are presenting to the customer with the actual cash offer, letting them know, here's what all your car needs. Here's the actual cash offer. And we actually offer a depreciation schedule on that same sheet of paper saying today your car is worth $24,000. Here's the expected depreciation over the next 24 months. The graph shows it in 6-month increments. So it's subtly letting the customer know that, hey, if you keep this car, it could cost you $6,000 over the next, 12 months. So we have our process really, really dialed in, and it is a non-friction environment. You don't see salespeople hounding service customers. You see one point of contact with the advisor presenting both options with the UVI report, and it just works. It's been a huge success for us. I think the national average of converting ROs to sold customers or car purchases is around 2%. We're currently at 8%. It's a dramatic difference.
Well, and just in talking about UVI, one of the interesting things that I've seen across the industry, and touching on this transparency that you're providing. I mean, customers are wanting videos. They're wanting to understand everything that's going on with the vehicle. And it's incredible to see how technology continues to elevate that experience, because we experience it in so many other transactions and, purchase processes, whether it's, looking at something on Amazon or watching TikTok or Instagram reels to get information about a product. I would love to hear a little bit more too on the topic of technology. There's often a lot of stuff available in the industry, and a lot of innovation has been happening over the last several years. But you've often spoken specifically about measuring individual forecasts along with creating that great culture. But in technology, being able to really marry those strategies together. What would you suggest automotive leaders utilize, in this environment of high tech and also high touch?
I think the dealers are spending heavily on the front end of the business. They're using lead sources. They're using technology on the front end of the business. I don't see dealers investing with the same emphasis on the service department. And that is the problem. As I mentioned earlier, the average profit made on a customer over a 3-year period is $36,000. $4,000 of that is coming from the sales department on average. The rest is coming from fixed ops. It's just an often neglected department. As far as forecasting goes, we're to kind of break it up into 2 questions. Holding each person in the dealership, regardless if you're a parts salesperson or you are a car salesperson, having a forecast for every single person in your dealership, the front end and the back end, and holding them accountable to that forecast is going to drive performance. They understand what is expected of them. It goes back to what we were saying earlier. Oftentimes in the back end of the business, people don't have expectations. Without expectations, it's very hard to get behind a company, get behind what you offer, and truly, strategize together, collaborate to hit those marks. And that's what I see as the neglected part of the dealership.
Brett, you've provided so much insight in our conversation today. I've learned a lot, and there's, I know, a lot of dealers listening today and a lot of OEMs and partners in the industry that have gained a lot of insight as well. Thank you for taking the time to be with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Sarah. I appreciate it.
Everyone, Brett Sutherlin of Sutherlin Automotive is here with us today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable. Stay tuned. We have more coming up next.
Lyft Concierge's courtesy ride platform makes it easy to send reliable, affordable rides to the people who matter to your organization, even if they don't have the Lyft app. Here's how it works. To start a new ride, log in on your desktop or mobile device and click Request. Then, fill out your rider's info. You'll see the ride's price and distance up front. Need to message the driver? Add a note here. Send the ride right away, schedule it for later, or send a flexible ride that riders can request on their own. Choose the ride type that fits your rider's needs, such as luxury and extra seat options. And voila, your ride request is on the way. Once a nearby driver accepts the ride, your rider will receive a text message with everything they need to know for a smooth pickup. If your rider doesn't have a mobile phone, they'll receive an automated call to their landline with all the details. From your dashboard, you can track and monitor active and upcoming rides and support your riders. With Lyft Concierge, you can take better care of your people, simplify transportation management, and drive your organization forward. Log in to send a ride with Lyft Concierge.
Good morning and welcome to Porsche Sacramento. My name is Lucas and I'll be the technician working on your Porsche Panamera today. Starting up here, we do have our rear tires at their lowest point, measuring in at about 4:30 seconds, as you can see there, both here on the left rear and in the right rear. Now we also did a thorough visual inspection of all underbody components, including but not limited to the vehicle's rear suspension, differential, exhaust and driveline center sections, as you see here, underbody trim panels, center differential and transmission components, front suspension, as well as the front tires. The front tires at their lowest point measure in just there at about 6:30 seconds, just there under 7 here in the front left and in the front right. So the front tires do have quite a bit of tread left on them. However, the rear tires will need to be replaced rather soon. So we're gonna go ahead and put in a yellow recommendation for that at this time. Now we're also gonna go ahead and move on to the front brake pad inspection. Up here in the front of the vehicle, our front brake pads at their lowest point, as you can see in there, have a yellow gauge indicating these front brakes measure in at 4 millimeters here in the front of the vehicle. Now the rear brake pads also measure in at 4 millimeters, so I'll go ahead and show you right here. With our yellow gauge, it's a little difficult to see, as you can see right there, 4 millimeters at its lowest point. Now because they're in the yellow, we're gonna go ahead and recommend a replacement of both the rear as well as the front brake pads at this time. Finally, we're gonna go underneath the hood of the vehicle for the underhood inspection. Finally, underneath the hood of the vehicle, we went ahead and performed the vehicle's engine oil change as well as an oil filter replacement located right underneath this cover. We went ahead and topped off the coolant, your coolant tank reservoir, washer fluid, and your washer fluid reservoir, and observed that the brake fluid and the brake fluid reservoir was at the correct level at the time of service. Now we also did a thorough visual inspection in and around the engine compartment, looking for any signs of prematurely worn or any damaged components, and everything underneath the hood of the vehicle is working and operating as it should be. The only other area of concern that we had found on the exterior of the vehicle was the vehicle's crack in the windshield, so we're gonna go ahead and recommend a replacement of the vehicle's windshield as well as a calibration at this time. So with that being said, we'd like to thank you for bringing in your Porsche Panamera for service today at Porsche Sacramento, and we hope to see you next time.
Take a peek at a segment from our Niello pop-up event as we travel to Infinity, Parts Wholesale, and beyond.
Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. I'm Sarah Vantine here with Ted Ames. We are at Niello Porsche in Sacramento, part of the Niello company. Ted, this is going to be an incredible panel talking about parts today.
Sarah, it is. And I've also heard that 2025 is the year of the parts department. So looking forward to speaking to the folks who are up here on the panel. Let me start over here with Sean, if you would. Tell everybody your name and what you do here at Niello, how long you've been with the company. Just be very brief. We'll go over down the line.
Hi, my name is Sean Ramirez. I've been with the company for 18 years. I'm the wholesale parts dispatcher. Get the drivers out, get the parts delivered.
And I'm John Centers with Niello BMW Mini of Sacramento. I've been with the company for 8 years now. My name's Chuck Toll. I'm the parts manager at the Acura store, the Rosedale Auto Law. Last week I hit 35 years with Newsome Company.
Congratulations, go. Yeah.
I'm Mike Rich, VP of e-commerce at RevolutionParts.
Lupe Garcia, parts manager at Land Rover Rockland, and been at the company 3.5 years.
Lupe, I'll start with you first. And we're talking about some of the wholesale opportunities today. Tell us your wholesale parts strategy at the Niello company.
For us, it's quality. Quality of looking up for parts. Also the quality of our drivers, which Sean will talk about later. It's being able to get the correct part right the first time to our client. Same thing that we do at the back counter.
Chuck, how do you see the wholesale part strategy here at the Niello company?
Well, the Niello company's got such a great reputation when it comes to your retail customers. And, you think of your wholesale customers, same type of way. It's all about, doing everything you can to make sure they have good experience buying their parts. If there's a problem with something, you go the extra mile, you make sure you take care of it, and they'll continue to come back to you, just like the folks that come see you face to face.
Perfect. John and Sean, what other points would you like to add?
One of the focus of the Niello company is we actually use a shared driver system. So basically we have drivers at each store. We'll meet at a centralized dispatching hub to dispatch out. So we leverage the amount of stores that we do have. So we use that to lower expense, to also provide a better service to our customers. We service pretty much all of Northern California and also some of Nevada. So we have a huge area that we do every day, and due to Sean's leadership with our queue.
We just want to expand our area and keep giving great service. We check our parts before we send them out, make sure our customers are getting good parts without dents and everything is delivered in a timely manner.
Well, gentlemen, I have heard that parts sells hours. And I know it's a big focus here at the Niello company. Also, your organization, you're not afraid to do new things, okay? We'll see some of those things this week here on the pop-up. I see what you're doing already on the back counter, and you're totally changing what the back counter looks like and wheeling it into the shop. Really amazing to see. Mike Rich, I want to come to you. You've come in from out of town at Revolution Parts. You work with the Niello company. Talk about e-commerce a little bit. Mike, what revenue opportunities do dealers like Niello experience from participating in online part sales?
Yeah, great question, Ted. So wholesale is really a lot about driving volume, and these guys talked about expanding. So e-commerce really allows you to expand outside of your local region and grab a national share of that parts market and just bring more gross volume into the dealership from a wholesale perspective.
And Mike, speaking of that, like you said, not just locally or regionally, now Niello is open 24/7, not just nationwide, but worldwide, and can sell those parts and accessories online.
If you can sell everything online 24/7. And the great thing about the B2B side too is a lot of shops are busy working in normal hours and are trying to source parts when the dealership closes. So that gives the B2B buyer the opportunity to search for parts outside of normal business hours.
Sarah, I've seen a chart recently from Revolution Parts that online parts revenue as market share is going to continue to grow, and the dollar amounts are in the billions of dollars, if you want to speak to that.
Yes, and Mike, this was such an incredible graph just to see, 25 million is about what it is in 2024 in online parts sales, or 25 billion in online part sales. And it's projected to get up to like 36 billion in the next 5 years. Is that right, Mike?
Yep, it is. It's growing at a great rate. So the overall online parts market is growing at a rate of about 5% a year. What we're seeing, though, on the OEM side, though, is the OEM market is actually growing at about 10%, because OEMs are being much more aggressive in going into the market and taking market share away from aftermarket competitors. So it's great opportunity. So it's growing, and then OEMs eating away at a faster pace than the aftermarket's growing at the same time.
And one last question on that e-commerce. For retailers like Niello, they have the factory authorized parts, which are what are being sold online. And that's a big differentiator for a company to get involved with e-commerce, I think.
It is. It's a big point of value to have, that fitment and, the manufacturer warranty, and then the Niello name behind those parts as well. So it just puts you at an advantage over, some of these kind of, I won't say fly by night, but I guess I'll just say fly by night shops that spends online will pop up and sell parts, and you don't have that trust and that name behind it.
So, Sean, if I can ask you, third question we have here, how does, for example, what you're doing with wholesale parts, how does that contribute to the dealership's long-term growth? I'm going to ask everybody on the panel.
We help a lot out with, as Larry was saying earlier, with fixed services. When service needs parts, we're able to pick up parts and get it to our service department to get the cars off the rack and stuff like that.
And John, your dealership, your organization is really focused on parts sales, which parts doesn't get a lot of love in the industry, let's face it.
Which is true, but it's okay. We're on the back end, and we kind of like that sometimes with the parts guys. We like to hide in our little hole there, but honestly, really for us, it's the volume game, right? We want to make sure that we hit our targets from our manufacturers to get a little back end money. So that's a big push for us to make sure that we do hit those targets. But really, it's about embracing change, right? Trying to do the e-commerce stuff. People do not come to the retail counter like they did in the past. So people really shop online, and we need to be with that technology to move forward.
Yeah, I think especially with Revolution Parts, getting into it as a group, we're going to have a much bigger opportunity to quickly start getting up that search ladder and create a presence to where, we're going to be up there when you go looking for your alternator for your car. So hopefully it's something where we can gain some good sales.
We talked to the techs about how being a technician has evolved over the years, the role of the technician. I see now the role of the parts department evolving because people are now going online and looking online. That's the first place they look.
Yeah, that is where most people start their journey, regardless of where they buy a part, is online. I think the last stat I saw is over 80% of people start that journey online. So if you're not online, you're not at the beginning of that journey, and you're losing out on a lot of potential business that may actually end up coming to a store to buy it.
Lupe, your thoughts, not just on e-commerce, but on wholesale as well.
Well, let's be honest here. Independent shop owners and body shop owners are getting younger. They're more tech savvy. And the way to do it is to jump on the Revolution Parts and to be able to get ahead of the game. And that's the honest truth right now.
Sarah, amazing.
So much to think about, Ted, and all of the pieces with parts. It's just going to continue to be an important part of the retail business.
Yes. Everybody, we are here with the Parts Superstars as a Niello company. Remember, parts sell hours. We're going to learn a lot more about what they're doing here in parts and in fixed operations. Sarah Van Tine and I will be right back.
You might have noticed that Ted and I are on the move, and that's because we are now hosting Fixed Ops Roundtable pop-up events. We are on our way to a dealership near you with spontaneous events in amazing dealership spaces to highlight the people in retail service, parts, and dealerships worldwide. Stay up to date where we're headed next by following the Fixed Ops Roundtable on social media.
Time is money, and wasting it waiting in line for parts or searching for information, that's a cost you don't need. But there's another way. MicroCat EPC makes every parts search faster, more efficient, and more accurate. It's the parts catalog built from VIN-specific OEM data, so you always get the right part, first time, every time. And it's more than just parts. MicroCat EPC also gives you access to service, repair, and fluid data, all in one place. It's fully integrated with your DMS, so orders are processed instantly. And with automatic OEM updates, you're always working with the latest information and pricing. Why wait in line when you can keep moving? Available anytime, anywhere, on any device. MicroCat EPC keeps you ahead of the game. Work faster, work smarter, because time is money. MicroCat EPC, driven by data and built to keep you ahead.
From day one, my owner has treated me so well, like one of the family. When you maintain your car, it'll take care of you too. So visit bgfindashop.com. Be good to your car with BG. Visit bgfindashop.com.
Join us in a galaxy far, far away. Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable All Systems Go event.
Do an inventory check as we learn the key traits to look for in a top-selling parts employee.
Welcome back to Revolution Parts. We're at the Fixed Ops Roundtable. My name is Ted Ings. We have an all-star lineup of retail folks with us today, beginning with Kelly Marsden at River City Ford. Lupe Garcia is with us from the Niello company. Also, John Centers, hailing from the same. And from Revolution Parts, Jen Zainuma and Amanda Poe. Everybody, welcome to the panel and grateful to have you here today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Our topic today are the key traits of a top-selling parts advisor. Most everybody on this screen has walked in those shoes and leads a group of those folks now. Kelly, let me come to you first, if that's okay, over at River City Ford. How has that role of the parts advisor evolved over time, and what traits do you look for to drive more parts revenue?
Yeah, I mean, I think nothing traditionally has changed too much. I mean, obviously, personality, good attitude, positive, and so forth. Someone that's generally into cars, not just here to collect a paycheck or anywhere else, right? But one thing I've noticed that a trend that we started changing is just the way that we talk to guests, and I think it's funny because I talked to Emily and Amanda about this on meeting before, but learning to be more real, and what I mean by that is, don't use the lingo that we all understand that we've been talking for 10, 15, 20 years. Some prime examples when, people come in, ask for a part, don't just say, oh yeah, I can get it. It's in Detroit. What does that mean to the customer? They don't understand things like that. Just say, yeah, I can get it. It's going to be X amount of days. Just speak what they understand. Don't make them sound like, oh, you don't know what I'm talking about. How do you not understand? Because we don't work where they work. We don't know their lingo, right? So it's only fair. But yeah, just learning how to be adaptable to the customer, relate to them, and just simplify things for them, right? So I don't also like hearing back order not available. I feel like there's always a way to get that part, especially now that we're in the e-commerce. We've learned more and more as we've gone away. There's always a way to find that resource. Customers are here to buy a part, not just necessarily always price shop it. Their car's down. They need to get to work. They need to get their kids to school. They'll do what it takes, right? Just help them out, and they'll return that favor. But yeah, it's just finding people generally into cars and understand how to talk to customers.
Lupe, let me come to you. What are your thoughts on key traits of a top-selling parts advisor these days?
One of the biggest things that comes to my mind, it's a core value we have here at the Niello company. It's called embrace change. I've been in the business as parts counter since 2002. And the one thing I noticed is everything went from handwritten microfiche to CDK, Reynolds & Reynolds computer-driven digital EPCs. You have to be technology savvy nowadays, especially if you want to move up and keep up with everyone else in the industry. Definitely being impressionable. A sponge that wants to soak up all that information is easier sometimes than teaching, that catchphrase, teaching an old dog new tricks. Also the shops and everyone are getting younger. They're getting much younger. Ownership's getting younger, and we have to adapt to that change, lingo, everything.
Lupe, Rick Niello says that the answer to most questions at the dealership can be found in those core values, and I noticed that most of you carry those around during the course of the day as well.
Oh, we do, absolutely. Those core values are the foundation for everything we do at the Niello company. It helps us retain employees. Many employees have been here, 20, 30 years long term. We had our longest term employee started as a driver. He retired at the beginning of this year. He was parts manager at our Audi location. I want to say it was just shy of 50 years, John. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think it was 48 years. So
48 years.
Yeah, Steve had a long run here, so really good guy.
Yeah, and core values form that foundation that everyone wants to stay.
Kelly, I was going to say that it seems that there is a lot of longevity in the parts department, no matter where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I replaced somebody here. He's wrapping up next week is his last week. He's been here for 47 years at this one dealership. So absolutely. And there's a lot of long-term, over 15-year tenured employees within our company. So yeah, even if you try to escape, they'll get you. You're coming back. So that's just how it is.
So, John Centers, keeping that in mind, you've been in the industry for a while yourself, and a lot of that long-term thinking that is in the parts department, no matter where you are. What are some of the key traits that you look for in a top seller in terms of parts advisor?
Loopy and Kelly kind of hit on a little bit of this stuff, but really, somebody that's a really good communicator. With how the world is now, I know back 20, 30 years ago, we had a lot of walk-in retail customers. That era is changing dramatically. People want an online presence. So you need somebody that's going to embrace the technology and also communicate, like Kelly said, hey, if the part's on back order, let's find a solution for it. And people want to hear news, whether it's good or bad, but no news is bad news, right? You want somebody that's going to actually communicate with that customer, because the last thing you want to do is have somebody upset because they've heard nothing. It's communicating. If you're unsure, communicate with a customer or a technician at the back counter. You have a part you're not sure of that they're asking for. It doesn't hurt to ask. So that's one thing what I teach my guys is don't think you always know, and communicate and ask the questions, because at the end of the day, you have to do those things to do a good job and retain people, because that's our ultimate goal, is not to buy one time from us, but to keep buying over and over and over. So
the repeat and referral business, as I've heard.
Yeah, I've heard that a few times in my life. So
now, Jenze, let me come to you, because like John said, being a good communicator, that doesn't always go hand in hand with somebody who works in let's say in fixed operations, let alone the parts department. Your thoughts on the top traits?
Yeah. So, I've been in the automobile industry for 15 years. And I've had an opportunity to kind of be a part of that shift where there was more of a more mature group, and I was kind of like the more young buck coming in with different things. And I had a lot of ideas, a lot of things that I wanted to implement in the dealership. And there was a lot of no's, like, no, this is not how we do it. No, this is not the way you go about it. Well, fast forward, now it's like everybody's doing it. You know what I mean? This is how everybody does things. And I think one of the things that's really important is, what you're looking for is somebody that's forward thinking, somebody that's hungry. Everybody's hitting on these points, but a person that pays attention to detail. That is a really big point when you're a parts person, right? You've got to be a person that keeps notes, keeps track of what you did, keeps track of what you're doing, and you pay attention to the details. And this is going to sound funny because you have AI and technology and all this stuff, but man, you got to remember numbers. You know what I mean? It's funny, you put a person in the parts department, they can't remember a part number. It's like, how did we get here? You know what I mean? So it's a critical fact of being in that role. But I think being forward thinking and being hungry to learn and not being set in your ways. And last piece is being customer centric. For years, the parts department was not the area of customer service. You know what I mean? That was sales and service. Parts was like, you need us. What do you want? You know what I mean? But customer service is big now because of e-commerce, because they have choices. It's not the only place they can shop in that area anymore. They are looking on their phone while they're talking to the parts guy. You know what I mean? So it's something that's really big nowadays.
So, Jenze, let me follow up with you, if I can, really quick on that. Would you agree that the expectations on the part of the parts customer has evolved and changed and is driving a lot of this as well?
Yeah, I feel like the more options people have, the more service you have to provide, right? The less options that people have, the more they can do whatever they want. Service doesn't matter. And because the customer has so many sources of where they can shop, and they are literally price shopping while they're talking to people. When the phone rings years ago, you'd think they'd come into the dealership when they got that part number. Now you don't know what they're doing with that part number, So it's a huge factor of, providing the proper service so that they want to do business with you.
Amanda, how do you at Revolution Parts, how do you see all this playing out?
I think that the future is uncertain. I think right now we're seeing it more than ever. We have no idea what's going to happen in the next 6 to 12 months. I've been in this industry for 10 years, and we've watched, I think, 5 different huge changes to our industry happen in the last 10 years. And there's another one happening right now. And so to me, the only way to be successful is to be flexible. You have to be willing to change. You have to be willing to evolve with the times.
All right. And Kelly, it would sound like those are part of the traits, being willing to change and being willing to evolve, as Amanda said, with the times as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, that's why I'm here. That's what makes it fun. I always say to myself, I come in every day and I'm just like, here's your brake pads, and that's the gents they said. If I remember every single part number, it's too boring. I haven't learned anything. I like when things get shaken up, and you got to learn to adapt and change it up, right? And that's where the strongest, I think, survive, is the ones that are willing to adapt. And some stores just don't, and you have to be ready for that. One thing I want to touch on, John mentioned too, is I didn't sell that enough, is communication. He's so right. I think communication is the one undervalued thing within our departments, is communicating with everybody and communicating with the customer. Further to his point about no news, is like, even if you call somebody and you don't have anything, just telling them you don't have anything keeps them away. The one thing I hate the most, and it's so embarrassing, I cringe every time I hear it, when the phone rings, somebody answers and says, "Oh, I was just about to call you." It's like, oh, I hate hearing that. It's like, why did that phone call happen? We should have let them call us, right? So, yeah, communication is definitely a huge underrated key point there.
So, Kelly, River City Ford, you're having tremendous success with the Revolution Parts platform. It's been said that selling parts online is like having a parts advisor working 24/7 and reaching customers all across the continent without adding any more payroll. Speak to us about that, what some of the advantages are and have been for you about online parts sales over, let's say, having to hire another advisor.
Yeah, this is a great question. I don't know if I'm going to start something here, but I mean, maybe that's why we're here, right? To throw it down. I don't know if I agree with that, but let me start with this. So I would say that for the first start, obviously, it was just myself and the assistant manager just taking those orders in, making sure this was a viable business. Till we get to that threshold where we have to up our game, hire people, and get committed people, is what I believe. And that's why I might not agree with this, and people disagree with me. But again, that's what the conversation is great for. I think that if you just have this as incremental revenue and you just wait for anybody answer the phone, whoever's available, I feel like that's where we learn to adapt. And when I got to that 75,000 K, that's per month, every level up, that's what was my signal to hire somebody full time. And here's why. I saw from other stores selling online that if just anybody answered the phone and it was their first time doing it in 2 weeks, they kind of fumbled it, dropped the ball, didn't really understand things. Whereas you have a dedicated person that's looking after that, they're invested, they care, they take pride in it, and they want it to do really, like they feel like they own that, right? And I give them that ownership. I want them to feel that pride. But yeah, I mean, again, start off with just, dip your toes in the water, just let anybody answer it. I always suggest the parts manager. If you want to make it super successful, they're going to care the most, because their name is behind that too. But yeah, it just 24 hours a day. It's funny you say that, Ted. I just did the calculations the other day. It's how we're starting to calculate our sales now. Is we take it and we divide it by how many hours, and we go how many dollars we're making per hour, 24 hours a day, right? So it's cool to see that figure where it's like, when I said it to somebody that was walking by, they're like, "What?" And they just realized, I'm like, well, it doesn't shut off. It's 24 hours a day. It's online. Like, while we're sleeping, orders are coming in, right? So it was a cool metric to put it in per hour what we're producing online.
Lupe, I feel a new metric coming on the scene sometime soon that we're going to be tracking at the Niello company as well. Lupe, speak to us about that, because you've been in the industry a long time. What about this 24/7 ability of being able to sell online as opposed to having to add more headcount?
It's great, honestly, and it comes back to what I mentioned earlier about being a sponge and soaking up information. I love cross-training my team. I love making sure my team, whether it's back counter, wholesale, front counter, that they can do a different job in case someone's out, or in this case, using Revolution Parts, anyone can take a order and process it when they have time. And that's the key right there, to not hiring another person as well, yet still having an advantage by increasing your sales and your gross revenue, is being able to multitask and utilize everyone you have at hand. And it helps everyone else. Everyone gets cross-trained, gives everyone the ability to move up. It's a win-win situation for everyone at that point.
Lupe, I've talked to some of the best Revolution parts dealers, and you're right. In many cases, it started off and has been that one person who works the platform really well and knows it inside and out. And it's not hard to learn, Lupe.
It's not. It's very easy to learn. It's very easy to adapt to. Payment processing is right in there. All you need to do, in our case at least, is have a account set up in CDK where those payments are going to go to, and you're pretty much good to go. Pack, ship, print, send it out.
John, he's right. Okay. A lot of the tools are there for you in Revolution Parts. You don't have to figure all that out. Someone's done that for you ahead of time. Plus they have the visibility all across the world where your parts department now is open everywhere all the time.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And most parts are process driven, right? And Revolution Parts kind of makes it easy for us where everything's right in front of us. So you don't have to have a bunch of people to do it. You can have your one person dedicated, taking those orders in, processing them. And as you grow, you can hire some of the lower cost employees. Maybe you get another shipping receiving guy to help check those orders in and get them shipped out. And then with that, you're grooming people to grow your store, right? That's like the best thing we can do is hire people to groom them to be our replacement. That's one thing that we talk about all the time at the Niello company is, hire your replacement. You hire somebody that you want to train and groom to grow the business, because without that influx of talent coming in, you end up being stagnant. So Revolution Parts is definitely big on that to get that incremental business. So we all need it.
Genze, you've got that rich history in retail also. You've done this job for a long time, and now you're mentoring and you're coaching dealers on behalf of Revolution all over the country on how to get really good with this platform. Speak to us about that, if you don't mind.
Yeah. It's interesting, this topic about, not having to hire another person, and how like having a website can be like having a person. And this was literally how I opened up the opportunity to this concept to my dealer, my first dealership I worked for, when I opened up e-commerce to begin with, because, I was on a parts counter, and I'd been through all, through all the ranks in the parts department and service. And as I'm sitting at the parts counter, I'm like, why don't we sell parts online? And literally they're like, we don't know how. And I'm like, I could figure it out. So I was the employee per se, but I was doing all my other roles, you know what I mean, while I was doing that. And it started bringing in revenue for the dealership that they would have never had if we didn't go about this. And, what we found is that, as we're, have accounts that's in consulting services here at Revolution Parts, is that everybody, understands that they need to be online, but it's that fear of the unknown of what to do, and that's what takes the time. What takes the time is the information, right? Once you have the information, and Revolution makes it really easy. Once you have the information, now it's just applying that so you can move forward. It's just like when you open up a new dealership, you already got a plan and a play and a process of how you're going to go about it. You already know the steps that you're going to take, right? But it's just now starting that. And that's the same thing that, comes about when you have an online presence. And, last thought I've got is that you think about, if you hire an employee to do anything at a dealership in parts, that employee's not bringing in new business. They're handling the business you currently have, right? And the e-commerce website, it's bringing in new business that the dealership would have never had, and it doesn't go to sleep. Like the employee that wants vacation, wants time off, wants lunch. Can you believe that? Lunch in a parts department? So yeah, the website's open 24 hours a day, and it doesn't ask for much, right? So.
Genze, as you work with dealers around the country and all over the continent, do you get a lot of common questions? Questions that you even had when you were in retail as well?
Yes, I do. Do you want me to run through a couple, or?
Give us a couple low-hanging fruit, yeah.
Okay. I'd say one is, what's the ROI, right? And that's a big question that everybody always asks. The second one is, how do I handle shipping, right? The third one is, what if, I don't have the parts in stock? It's basic stuff that you, like, as John said, there's a process to it, right? and there's a way to handle every scenario. What can I expect in a year? And in that one, I will answer that's based on the person. That's based on the dealership. If they're not going to put work at this, it's not going to work. This is not, in my opinion, it is very simple, but this is not a set it and forget it and walk away and just sit back and collect money. You know what I mean? You got to put energy, but the good thing is the tools are in place to actually put energy in the right areas. So.
Excellent. Amanda, having a Genze to work with dealers on behalf of Revolution, that's a big differentiator you've got there, and it's a big plus.
It really is. And I think the thing that I would add to what everybody here has said is if you think about where the parts department and parts managers were a few years ago, you showed up for work and the first thing you did was you checked your voicemail and you checked your email inbox so that you could process all those requests that came in overnight. And then 2 to 3 years ago, we saw that change. And all of a sudden, you didn't have emails or voicemails anymore of people requesting orders. And a lot of parts managers asked, well, what happened? Where did that go? Or maybe they were grateful because they no longer had to spend the first 2 hours of their day processing orders that came in via email. And it's because people switched from requesting parts via email to requesting parts online and buying those parts online and actually sending you their credit card information and all their VIN and everything that they needed to be able to get that part shipped directly to them. So now the parts managers that work with us and work with Gense, because of that advice that Gense just gave, they're advertising their online parts store. They're putting it out there. They are promoting it to the right people at the right time in the right place. Now they're showing up and they don't have emails or voicemails. They have orders and they got to package those and ship them. And most of the dealers that we work with, the response that we get from them is just they're amazed and they're happy because no longer are they responding to those emails or losing those customers to people who have online stores. Now they're getting those online orders themselves.
Fascinating panel, everybody. We're talking to some of the very, very best of the best in online parts sales. This panel is about key traits of a top-selling parts advisor. We're here with Revolution Parts. Last question, everybody, for today. Kelly, I'm going to start with you, a lightning round, and then we'll go around and we'll bring it home and we'll have Amanda close it. Kelly, for you at River City Ford, everything in the world is becoming more digital. You can't deny it. It's been coming for a long time, and now it's squarely here in the parts department. We've talked about some of the skills that employees need, to be more effective. But from your point of view, if you had to bring it down to 1 or 2 core skills to be successful in managing online sales and that customer communication, what would you say that is?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I feel it was 4 against 1 there. I knew I was going to start something where I have the one off where I hire dedicated people. And to that point, with it becoming adapting to technology, right? Like my team has, they've learned CSS coding, HTML, Java. I have a developer full time now. We're trying to stand up and be different because all of our sites are very cookie cutter. They're all the same. But we need to stand out, right? So my team doesn't just take an order and move on. It's how do we make that part and that order better for the next customer that goes to find that part. So it doesn't just end with the order. It's add pictures, change the description, change the titles, be different, stand out, because they understand SEO as well. They've taken courses in that. They understand where the wealth comes into changing the site, right? Not just sitting stagnant. But those are key things that I look for. My teams loved it, adapted to it, taken, embraced it, and they just, every order that comes in, it's more than just an order now.
Kelly, pictures and SEO. This sounds like the sales department, not the parts department.
I know, right? Sorry, I want to stay in parts.
Lupe, your thoughts. 1 or 2 key things that you look for.
Biggest thing for me, tech savviness and communication, and especially someone who's a good communicator. You find that they give the same level of customer service, whether or not the person's in front of you, on the phone, email, or even online. And it leads back to what Kelly mentioned, the extra photos, putting in the extra effort to go the long yard and find that part for that customer, keeping them informed of what the ETAs are. Those are all key traits that I look for, or I train for in some cases in my employees. Again, we train from the ground up. We love to hire from within and train people up. So it's it really is focused on that.
I love it. John Centers, your thoughts. By the way, John, a lot of great people in our industry have started off in the parts department at the bottom as the driver and worked their way up.
For sure, for sure. Really, it's embracing technology, right? That's as the world evolves, the technology around us is going to evolve, and it's just embracing it and working with what we have in front of us. Also, the communication part that we touched on earlier. But another thing for me is having people that are eager to learn something new and try new stuff, right? It's one of those things where one of my pet peeves as a manager is when I ask somebody, "Hey, what about this?" and they say, "Well, nobody's ever shown me." Well, if your focus or your job is, "Well, nobody showed me how to do it," well, sometimes you have to have that drive and the eagerness to actually learn yourself, or ask questions, right? It's trying to find those people that actually want to learn, because if you sit back, the world's going to pass you by. You need to hop in, and you need to embrace all these things around you and try to learn, because if you're not learning every day, the world will blow right past you quick. So
Excellent. Jenze, you work with a lot of dealerships. What skills are you seeing out there that are essential to succeed here?
Well, one, there's three I'll point out that are critical, because a person in a parts department, even if this is all that they do, somehow they still do other things in the parts department. I don't know how that happens, but it just happens. They're working on this, but somehow they're doing this sometimes over here. But anyway, but automation, we have a lot of automation tools on our platform that make things really efficient when it comes down to different tasks that are redundant and consistently noticed whenever somebody's working on a platform. The other one is canned messages. That's a big thing, right? So, it takes so much time to type emails out versus creating a canned message in our platform that you can have it there because you just notice a repetition of a situation. And then the last one I'll put in is AI. The reason I'm going to say AI is because as much as I want to say I'm a grammar person, sometimes I write a message and it's a parts message, right? I sound like a parts guy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that thing in AI and chat GPT it and change it and make it more professional, a little bit more customer centric. And I say, hey, make this nicer, all right? And then go ahead and have that message ready to go, just to make my time a little bit more efficient on the platform. So,
love it. Amanda, I'm learning a lot from this panel. These are the real leaders who know this business. Bring it home, Amanda.
I think John stole my answer a little bit. I want somebody to ask questions. If I'm talking to a parts manager and he is totally happy with the status quo, if he's just going to do what everybody has done before him, and he doesn't want to try anything new, and he doesn't want to shake things up at all, it's raising red flags for me all over the place. So I'm looking for somebody that's asking questions and looking for ways that he can improve, or she can improve and bring a new look and a new perspective to the department to really help to grow revenue and increase efficiency.
Everybody, great job. We'll have to leave it there. Again, I learned a lot, took a lot of notes, Amanda, on this. Thank you. And Kelly, thank you so much for, again, being on our panel, and great information from your dealership, River City, and for yourself. Lupe Garcia and John Centers from the Niello company. Again, great job. Great work, everybody. And Jenze, we continue to learn. I think that you and I are among the people who learn the most, okay, on these panels. At least I do. So. All right. Amanda Poe, thank you so much. Everybody, for more information on Revolution Parts, you can visit them online at revolutionparts.com. You'll see them all over social media as well. And again, they're the leader in online e-commerce. I want to thank the panel for being with us today. The Revolution Parts panel here with us today on the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
The economy is always shifting, and dealerships face new challenges in an unpredictable landscape. But with changes comes opportunity, especially for your parts department. As the market continues to evolve, parts and service are becoming an even more critical revenue stream for dealerships. Consumers are holding onto their vehicles longer, and your parts department is in a unique position to meet the growing demand for maintenance and repairs. The key to capitalizing on this? Selling parts online. If your parts aren't listed online yet, now's the time to get started. If you're already online, it's time to expand your reach. 24/7 e-commerce sales helps you connect with more customers anywhere, anytime. Selling parts through platforms like Amazon, eBay, and your own web store helps move inventory faster, unlock manufacturer incentives, and help keep revenue flowing. The more parts you sell, the more you grow your bottom line, even in uncertain times. The economic landscape may keep changing, but your parts department doesn't have to feel the squeeze. With the right e-commerce strategy, you can lock in steady income, boost profitability, and stay ahead of whatever comes next.
Connect your constellations to the Automotive Warranty Network in our next segment, filmed live at our Niello pop-up event.
Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. I'm Sarah Bantine here with Ted Ings. Our incredible panel today is on Automotive Warranty Network and talking about warranty. Ted, we are at Niello Porsche in Sacramento, California, and it is a beautiful facility.
And as part of this beautiful event, we're so fortunate to have Tully Williams with us, leading off for the Niello company, Jarrett Williams as well, the BMW location. No relation. And David Reinicke, the president of Automotive Warranty Network, largest of its kind in the industry. David, welcome.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Tully. No, absolutely.
Well, Tully, to kick things off, in talking about challenges that the industry faces and also dealerships face, what are the biggest challenges that you see dealerships facing when it comes to warranty calls?
Warranty is a huge deal, and it all starts with everybody takes it for granted. And what we want to think about is warranty is it is your cash flow for your company. It is the way that you can get audited and go bankrupt. It's the way to make sure you're not doing the right process. So for us to have a great partner and doing warranty right is that you have to understand, do they know the process? Are they getting every tenth and every part? Are they billing out every part properly to the bulletin? Right? Are they making sure our technicians know exactly how to write the story? Right? Are they doing the right process right? That's all part of this process, and ensuring that we submit on an orderly basis, which is every day, and collecting money every day. That is a great process. If you don't have that process, your store is doomed for failure. Warranty submission is a huge deal at a dealership.
And it's all real. Well, you don't ball it up too much other than saying that the warranty administrator is our biggest cash inflow on a daily basis. They bring in so much business for us, and if we don't do the process right, if we don't have our technician notes right, and we don't have the proper parts built out, then we're not going to generate the income that we can generate. And that's the possibilities are endless when it comes to warranty. And I think you want to make sure that you maximize every warranty dollar by making sure that your warranty is 100% true and correct every time.
David Reinicke, this sounds pretty good.
Yeah, everything sounds true. I mean, like Tully said too, it can get away from you really, really fast. So, I mean, if you're not paying attention to it on a daily basis, if you're not looking at your schedules weekly, if it goes too long, it's not collectible. So if you let it go 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever that manufacturer's guidelines are, that's uncollectible money. And it puts your scorecard with the manufacturer in a bad place. So, and then what you said about one-time use parts, I mean, that's a huge, huge thing right now. I'm preaching that almost on a daily basis to our clients. So,
and I think a lot of times happens is our techs assume everything is okay. And if your warranty administrator is not on the backstop to, hey, you didn't build those bolts out, you didn't put those bolts out in there, we can nip it in the butt now. Because what happens is you get an audit, you're just screwed.
And it's not like they did it on purpose. They just didn't know. So our warranty admin for us is to help us protect us, to make sure the technician also is doing it right. Jerry, what do you think about that?
I think the warranty administrator's secondary job is the training and mentoring.
Correct.
They have all the knowledge of the processes for warranty, and if they don't share it with the technicians when they aren't putting the story properly inside the DMS, then we're not going to maximize our dollars again. So making sure that your warranty administrator has a relationship with your technicians to be able to talk to them and coach them on how to write a story is invaluable.
David, I think the awareness of warranty has grown in terms of the retail dealer. What are your thoughts on that? Because I hear more and more discussions now as fix continues to grow in this round.
It's a lot of money. I mean, especially with labor rates going up, parts markup going up. I mean, our average client, again, I know I've said this before, I mean, they're collecting hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. So it's a lot of money to lose.
You mentioned the parts. David, any other common issues that you see dealerships face with warranty claims processing? And I'll open that up for these gentlemen as well. Anything that you've heard in the industry as well, you want to be aware.
One-time use parts, again, improper repair procedures. So those are two of the really big ones on the repair side of things. But then documentation too, making sure we have customer signatures, signed add-ons, making sure all that's just low-hanging fruit that will get charged back in an audit. So
think about this. We do the job right. The customer is happy. Everything is done perfectly, except the service writer or the service manager didn't sign off on. Claim reject. We did everything right. It was an oopsie. That's what happens in an audit. Our goal is that do we have a backstop to help us prevent that from happening? And that's what a good warranty admin does. A good warranty admin can make or break a dealership.
It's all about how much income can warranty generate your dealership. And in our particular case, our warranty rate is better than our labor rate for our customers. So warranty never says no, right? I don't have to sell them anything. So that money is, you just need to do it right the first time so that you can collect your money. And that's really what warranty is all about. Amen.
David, it's all about doing it right. We're hearing that over and over. Plus the fact that outsourcing that for many, many dealerships has proven to be a very viable and positive solution.
Yeah, we have a lot of clients that have eliminated the warranty admin position. There's dealerships and their dealer groups and have gone with a company like ours. The benefits to that are obviously they don't have to worry about turnover or having to hire a new warranty admin if that warranty admin leaves. We're on all the time. I mean, we finish into the month, payroll periods, and we also offer training. So speaking to some of the things we've talked about with training, we can come into the dealership and help their technicians understand the policies and procedures and what needs to be done. So,
Sarah, probably nothing more important right now in the industry than warranty.
It's true, Ted, especially as technology continues to develop. We're going to see a lot more of this.
Yep. I want to thank everybody on the panel for all you do for the industry and helping to bring this to light. David, any final thoughts for the audience watching on warranty? Things we need to be aware of in 2025 from a dealer perspective, those watching out there.
Just to reiterate it, just pay attention to it. I mean, look at your schedules, inspect what you expect, because again, it can get away from you really, really fast. So,
David Reinicke, everybody, Automotive Warranty Network, the leader in the industry in warranty and helping dealers. I'm here with Sarah Bentine at the Niello Company in Sacramento, and we are going to be right back.
The business model of Automotive Warranty Network has always been to provide the very best service we can to automotive dealerships. We believe very much in partnerships, so we partner with dealerships to help them process their warranty repair orders the best they can, but also stay compliant with a manufacturer policy and procedure.
Dealerships, some of them don't understand the importance of the supporting documentation. The repairs are performed, manufacturer is going to come in and audit them. That supporting documentation needs to stand up in an audit. If not, those monies will be charged back to the dealership. So important thing that our team provides the dealerships is the information where the supporting documentation does not support the repairs performed, where they could lose those monies in an audit.
Audits are not scary. Audits are actually fantastic learning experiences. I am a big proponent for audits. I am not perfect. I do not think anybody is perfect. AI isn't even perfect. It is such a learning experience, and manufacturers are looking for things differently every year, and it keeps us on our toes. Then I know that I could take that information that I gather and provide it to my other dealerships and say, hey, we need to stay on top of these things.
We offer full warranty administration services from beginning to end, from reviewing technician comments and punch times, looking up and applying labor operations and times in the DMS, and transmitting to the manufacturer for payment. We then follow up on claims daily and account for any differences in payment.
SWAT stands for Specialized Warranty Assistance Team. We provide coverage for admins who could be taking vacation, if there's family medical leave, bereavement, sick time. So we provide coverage so that there's no hiccup between the admin being out and the dealer having their work processed.
We developed an application called CARS, which stands for Claim Accountability and Reporting System, which is a reporting tool that we use to help dealerships improve in their processes. So it's a tool that we use to identify how frequently compliance issues are happening in a dealership. And we can tell dealerships how frequently those problems are happening, which of their staff members is happening with. And then we also offer training to help educate those particular staff members on the types of issues that they're having and help them improve.
I think the biggest thing I love about this company is the owners. David and Jamie, they care about us. They encourage us to do training. They encourage us to make sure that we're master certified in our car lines.
When I started with AWN, we had 30 employees and about 167 clients. Currently, year to date, we're at 1,500 clients and 340 employees and growing. It's pretty amazing. The people that are with us, our clients, we love them. It's a pretty amazing place to be right now.
Put chalk to the blackboard for our next segment featuring work truck solutions.
Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. What an amazing time to be in our industry, and we have some amazing leaders with us today at the Roundtable. Work Truck Solutions led by Kathryn Schifferle, who is with us here today, and also our good friend and colleague Jim Press, who has graced the Roundtable several times before, and Roger Conant, our good friend from Houston, who's here. Kathryn, Jim, and Roger, welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
It's good to be back. Thank you.
Good morning.
Well, good to have you. And by the way, Jim, you've always got your finger on the pulse of what's happening in the industry. And congratulations to you, because you've really identified an opportunity that's growing in our industry. So we'll come to you on that. And so thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
Roger, do you want to set the stage?
Bring up the slide.
Here we go.
We're going to kick it off here. Well, first of all, I'm really glad to be here. Actually, I'm ecstatic about being here. I want to introduce myself for those who don't know me, and there'll be a lot of those. I'm Roger Conant. I've had 4 career stints. I was in broadcast. I was a real estate broker, residential. Then I worked with credit unions, which led me to retail auto. But the real focus and the real learning experience came from what I have here on this slide. And that is, I spent 4 years as customer experience manager for service only. That's kind of an unheard of position, with a big Buick GMC dealer called Beck and Maston. And then I spent 5 years in the Group 1, what they call a consolidated inbound service center. And 40,000 phone calls. I learned a lot. Next slide. And here's Kathryn. So what I'd like to do is let Kathryn, I put up there what she always puts on her introductory slides. But Kathryn, if you would kind of get some color on this for me about you, and then would you introduce Jim for me?
Absolutely. And thank you, Roger. Nice to be here. Nice to meet you, Ted. I'm very passionate about the space that we're working in, which is commercial vehicles. It's a B2B space, and my background was in technology. And when I was introduced to this space, which is the hardworking, salt of the earth backbone of the US economy, and found that there were challenges for dealerships to serve that space, I was very excited about seeing if I could help. That was our first dealership that we launched our platform solution into was in 2012, and we've been learning a lot since. We have over 1,300 dealerships that are focused on serving their local businesses. And I was very fortunate. I think it's been 5 years now, Jim, that I was introduced to Jim Press as a senior advisor. Like I said, very, very fortunate. He, as you guys know, has a long, illustrious career, but more importantly, he really saw what this could become. And that made me feel confident that we were delivering value. Jim?
Thank you. Just as an introduction, I started out as a technician in a commercial truck dealership a long time ago, and went to Ford and GM and a couple of other OEMs along the way, and then I've spent some time at retail about the last decade. So I've enjoyed a great opportunities. Meeting Kathryn allowed me to see not only the commercial industry, but to learn about SaaS, to learn about the programs and the systems that the dealerships were buying to become more efficient from the inside out. So I've been a student of hers at her feet. I've learned a lot, and I look forward to discussing this subject because it's near and dear to my heart. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Okay, Ted, second slide. This is what we're going to talk about today, growing your commercial service business, or as I also call it, retaining rational customers. All right, next slide. And I know I kind of wrote all over this, but I have to tell you, there was an article. This is a copy of an article that was in Automotive News this week. And it had to do with retention and loyalty. And I wrote all over this because it had the same things we've been seeing for 20 years, 30 years. And that is with retail customers, that is. Their perfect first impression, building relationships, same old, follow up, try harder. And I have to tell you, that's all valid. And I think we can improve on our experiences with retail auto customers. But trip to the next slide there, Ted. But when you look at what's going on with retail auto and the fixed operations, you see that all of that effort is not really paying off that much. The latest Cox research shows that, people are still defecting from the dealership service center. And I like this slide on the right because it's a slide I got that shows dealers defecting after 7 years. It's even more dramatic. Next slide, Ted. And what this also says from Cox, it says it's because of trust, because of losing trust in the customer experience. Next slide. So I got to tell you, this would be real quick, but I responded with a letter to that article. And I basically said, maybe we ought to start looking at commercial customers and fleet customers because they're really different and they're rational people. So they tell me they're going to publish this coming week, but we'll see if it does. I'm kind of proud of that. Next slide. So here's where I started learning about commercial. This was just 2 years ago. Ted was actually doing some work with Ford. And so I started doing research, and I found out that Ford was going to announce what they call a capital market day, where they spend the whole day, very dramatic presentation. And it just so happens most of that presentation was about Ford Pro. They talked about dividing their company into 3 divisions and all that. But it came on the heels of the EV blow up, all right? Evidently, Ford, along with a lot of other OEMs, had really blown a lot of money on EVs. And my take is they probably looked around to see what can we really talk about that's really doing well right now. And I have to tell you, I believe the gist of that presentation all day was really to promote Ford Pro. And you see Ford Pro started out, that was their commercial part of their business that has high margins, predictable customers, and Kathryn and Jim will be talking about that. But since then, everybody hops on a winner, and here comes GM, Evolve, Stellantis, and we're off to the races with commercial. Next slide. What I really got from that presentation was one word, and that was rational. In all my years of dealing with retail customers, I don't think I ever dealt with a rational customer, okay? Because they're different, and no fault against them. They just have their emotions involved. It's not black and white. It's the furthest thing in the world from B to B. The furthest thing in the world, and I'm not going to read all this to you. I will read this. It says, behavior or decision-making deviate where behavior or decision-making deviates from what would be considered logical or rational, often driven by emotions or biases rather than objective factors. I won't read the rational part. I got this from Webster's Finest. All right. Next slide. So my research showed, and what my knowledge is, especially those 3 years at Beck and Maston, watching everybody who came into their service department, was that it's a very good chance that most everybody that's in the retail auto customer service department business is already has commercial customers coming into their dealership every day for service. They're coming in, small fleet customers come to dealer service, and most of them, I just have a feeling based on my experience, are not being differentiated. So with the way customers are defecting from retail service, that means that a lot of them will be defecting to the IRFs, the independent repair facilities, and the chains. And I think a lot of managers will never really know that this happened, that there were commercial customers who really would link better and resonate with more specific messaging to them that were going to leave and would have been their best, most loyal customers in the long run. Next slide. So I'm going to kind of turn this over to Kathryn and to Jim a little bit, but I'll just say, who are they, commercial customers, and what do they want? And I'll just tell you that Kathryn's figure is 51% of today's fleets have 5 or less vehicles. These people need help. They need distinction. They need to have the perception that their business is different. And Kathryn, if you just take a few of these that I've mentioned here, and kind of I'll turn this over to you and Jim to do a little extra color here. All right?
You bet. I'm very passionate about the difference between B2B and B2C. And you've definitely nailed it there, Roger. These are local businesses, and I've talked to OEMs. By the way, we power the tier 1 sites for all of the many of the OEMs. So we are showing commercial inventory uniquely searchable by what that vehicle actually became, because of course the OEMs only have the cab chassis information. It's an F450 or whatever, or the van, and we know what it became, and that's really important to the buyer. I mean, there's a big difference between a dump truck and a flatbed, right? And so that was kind of how we got started, was solving that problem. But then what we realized is, like you said, if they're not treated differently in the service lane, they're going to be gone because they have a priority. They're not waiting for a coupon to come in and do service. They need to be back up on the road. They're losing between $2,000 and $5,000 a day because their main tool, their vehicle that they have someone who is using to generate that revenue, is down. And so just that thought of thinking differently about that customer is the first really big step that's missing. And you, Ted, we were talking a little bit about this mobile services that have sprung up, the building of bigger bays and focusing the actual focus on repairing medium duty vehicles and stuff like that. But it really just starts with acknowledging that uptime is important, that the commercial customers need to be recognized uniquely. And I don't know when you want to start talking about what that converts to. Once you've done that for a business, they become absolutely loyal because they're not in the business of managing their fleet. They're not in the business of taking care of that. And if you've done that for them, they will come back, and that starts translating into all sorts of other good things. There's, people that work at the business. There's owners of the business. What I try to explain to dealers is that once you crack that, you've now found a way into keeping people loyal for your entire dealership.
And Jim, why don't you kick in a little bit here with a little word here about what your thoughts are?
Okay, well, I really fully aligned with the comments that you started with, and this is a great forum. And for those that are watching, hopefully we can put in perspective not just where we are today, but the future, the potential, and why it's the right thing to be doing. When I started, service was the back end of the business, and the dealerships were mainly sales organizations, and they had to fix cars. And you knew that service always meant the second sale. That's always been the truth in terms of all the things you say about being generating customers for life and money. But over the past number of years, dealership business has become corporations. They're no longer a sales company. It's now, when the publics came in and the large groups became corporations, the business became much more formal, and it were investments and returns and good decisions. At the same time, the car business, the OEM business, is a very high break-even business, which means that volume is what they make money on. The last 10 or 15% of volume. And so inventory, pressure to sell, add sales, have compressed the sales profit opportunities and have left the dealers primarily with their largest margin is in service and parts. So it's 70% margin in service. And so the business has become service centric. The second thing that's happening is we see the entry of mobility. Mobility is not just fix a car when it breaks. People and dealers want someone to take all these jobs that individuals are doing, package them, and make their life easy and make their business decisions better and make profit for them. And so we're transitioning from when we looked at gross profit per car, when we sell it, to mobility, which is making pennies per mile driven of the entire fleet. And when you do that, the business becomes so much greater. It becomes trillions of dollars, not billions. And the commercial business is the entry into mobility for dealers.
And speaking of that, run to the next slide there, if you would, Ted. And I want to put up a couple of things here. The next one. This is from Kathryn's webpage, not that one, but back up one. This is actually from Kathryn's web page. And Kathryn and Jim, would you take a one or two of these and kind of speak to it, expand on it a little bit?
Well, my favorite ones are loyalty, because you're providing value. That's what makes this a rational business. The dealers are, as Jim was talking about, they're measuring their return on investment, right? They're measuring their goals When you provide that, they have a reason for coming back. And that reason is not about their cost. Like I joked about, I use a coupon to go do my service, but they don't. And so there's never an argument about the cost, right? It's about the value. That's the part that I like. How about you, Jim? What's your favorite part?
I like, well, first of all, margins. The commercial repair business is worth 2.5 to 3 times what retail repair business is. But Roger, I'd like to change this a little bit, not how commercial customers are different, but how the commercial business from a dealership is different, where you invest in a completely different structure, capital, facility, technicians, systems, and processes. And that I think for the audience, instead of looking at this as a way to talk to individual customers, make the commitment to get into the business from the top to the bottom with the appropriate facilities, the appropriate opportunities for your people, and go after this business, every element of it, from building the relationships to getting the vehicles fixed quickly, mobile. And if you want to look at those that have done well, they've gone all in. And you can't do this just a little, put your toe in the water. You got to look at it as a business that's separate. It's a new profit center. And to me, this commercial business is going to be much bigger. The way F&I started 20 years ago as a little corner part of the business, now look at it, it's our major part of our gross. This commercial business will become your largest profit center and the entrance into mobility, which is your future as a dealer.
Jim, I know one of the OEMs that we've been working with that has a very substantial presence in commercial with commercial vehicles for their dealers and service centers recently told us they were concerned about throughput. They told us that the average time for a commercial repair order, RO, to be open from the time it's open to the time it's closed, and I was astounded by this figure, is 8 days nationally. Opening a RO to closing it. And they were very concerned because that's, Kathryn, that's 8 days of a vehicle being down. That's 8 days times the math that you mentioned a little bit earlier, and all that valuable time. If you'd like to weigh in on that.
Well, I do think that differentiation, that is not differentiation. That's the idea that there's a business opportunity and you're just going to do it the same way that you've been doing everything else. That's not understanding the market and the needs of the market. I know that the OEMs have come out with more packages and services. I mean, that slide that you showed with each of the OEMs having now their commercial focus, and they want to help the dealer be a more comprehensive solution for businesses. But that's different than understanding that what the business needs are. And like Jim said, that's where you've got to start. You've got to say that's not acceptable. They're talking about the future. There are ideas around, fleet as a service. There are things that could come out of this that would allow the dealer to have even newer models of revenue, where they can actually start mitigating those kinds of uptime issues. It's just a big opportunity, and you can dabble in it. And Roger, you said it. Everybody is in it, whether they know it or not right now. There's ways to start looking at it and understand every market is a different opportunity too. Based on the geography and the nature of what's going on around urban, rural, etc. It's a very exciting opportunity.
Well, let's stay on that for a second, Kathryn, because I thought one of the most profound things I heard in one of the recordings of an interview with you was a gentleman asked you, said, well, how would somebody who's already in the business, but as Jim said, not really in the commercial business, go through the steps? And of course, with Work Truck Solutions as a resource, a prime resource. And by the way, folks, every bit of information I received in the last few weeks has been through Kathryn's website and watching Jim and her with their summits. let's go through that process of what somebody listening to this today. Okay, I want to know more. I want to either do better at what I'm doing, or I want to go more all in. Kathryn, why don't you take us through that?
As a business person, my first advice is to look around your market. Look at your market and say, what do I see? And by the way, I'm infecting everybody right now, because here's what happens. You hear about commercial vehicles, you look at them, and then you start seeing them everywhere. So I've now infected everyone that's been on this call. You're now going to see all these different kinds of weird vehicles that are custom built for these use cases.
You bet.
And look at your market, and then look at some of the associations that that exist in your area that are of businesses. And we're happy to provide SIC codes and descriptions and data about markets. I think why that's important is because if you're going to get serious about it, you have to believe in the TAM of it, right? In the opportunity of it. And then I think you decide, are you going to start all in, or are you going to start with a plan of phased plan, right? And I think, I don't know, Jim, it's a lot to wake up one day and say, I'm going to build a 50 bay commercial service bay, right?
Well, but just to add to that, I think you started the right way. I'd begin with contacting Work Truck Solutions and asking for a copy of the playbook, because the playbook has established as a step-by-step process of converting into a professional commercial service operation. And I think you should also start looking at it as a business. And so you need to make a proposal to the investors, the dealer, the general manager, to allocate the resources necessary based on your analysis of your market, the amount of business that exists, not just today, but extending to the future, where it's going to go, what kind of capacity you need, the kind of technicians, the mobile service, the technology, the processes, and build a business plan. This is not something you go into a little bit at a time. It's a corporatization of commercial business, and you are the ones that are responsible to make it happen. Not just looking at ROs. You're responsible to grow your business.
And tell me something. The dealers right now who are not in it, they're doing it, whether they know it or not, and some of them are doing it better than others. I've heard on a number of your summit, especially your presentation, Jim, that really this business needs to be separated out from the retail business. Now, I know that's hard to do. There are not a lot of tools right now to do that. But what I've heard on your past summit recordings is the dealers who are in commercial full force have been able to separate the advantage, money-wise, retention-wise, every-wise, out from the differentiation from a retail customer. And it's astounding what they find out, is it not?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's obviously the key to the business. And the further you can grow it, the more you can invest in it and separate. Separation is really important because it's not a transaction, it's a relationship. And those two are not compatible in sales or in service. So I think that, and the other thing is, many dealers adopt these concepts early, and they're the dealers of the future. And those that are holding on to the past and trying to keep doing business the way it's always been done, well, they may not have the same potential future that the progressive dealers are. And the progressive dealers are looking at mobility, commercial, service, parts, and a business that goes forward for a lifetime.
And let me say that from my experience, the experience I had in that 3 years of just basically hanging out with 11 advisors and watching every single thing they did. And when I started to learn about Kathryn's as a resource and about commercial and how they need to differentiate with them, I really saw that it wouldn't take much, would it, Kathryn, for dealers to become better at this, to start to see the advantage of this by designating maybe an advisor that's more competent. You need to give a perception of separation and differentiation. All right, that person coming in with 2 or 3 trucks, maybe even 1, you sure want to grow with them, but we really need, at the very least, to start distinguishing them from other customers. And I believe that lies a lot with the advisors. Am I correct in that?
I think that you're absolutely correct that when a business customer comes to the dealership, they need to immediately be acknowledged as being unique and different. And whether it's, I'm not fully up to date with all the different ways that you would pull them out of whatever side lane everybody's in line and move them over somewhere else and say, we're going to get to you like right now, but that's what you have to say and do. And it's not just perception though, Roger. It's the difference of 8 days, Ted, and 2, right?
Well,
Kathryn,
that's a
Kathryn,
management thing.
If I can just follow up, Jim mentioned the playbook. Is that a resource that's available to our audience? How do we get that? And tell us a little bit more about what Work Truck Solutions can do for our audience.
You bet. And please just email us at info@worktrucksolutions.com. I know that you're showing that URL, so just use info. And over a couple of years, we've built this playbook focusing on each of the different departments and needs in the entire dealership. But I will say that over the last few years, the service part of the business has become a really clear differentiator. You've seen that with Ford's launch of the 2 things that they're focusing on, which is the mobile service, which, by the way, has become extremely successful. They require certain program dealers to have 1 or more of these mobile vehicles. And then over time, they've learned about which services make the most sense to take out, which ones they can't take out because of, complexity. And the really smart ones, and we did a webinar the other day with a young man in Northern California. They've really differentiated the kinds of services and the levels of the service provider. So they've done really good at saying, well, here are the really, certified, excellent people over here doing this work. And we can use completely, easily trained people to do this set of services, which
Ed Roberts, who was at Bozard Ford Lincoln in St. Augustine, Florida. We just visited with him recently. He's here. He's one of the anchors of the Roundtable. They now have 48 Ford mobile service trucks.
Wow. There you go.
About 2 years ago, they had 10 and they were the leader. 48 today. And I said to Ed, Ed, where's this going? He said, Ted, the customer satisfaction on mobile service by going to them and making it convenient is off the charts. There are months where we have perfect CSI just from these mobile service. He said, Ted, I can foresee us going to 200 mobile service units because it frees up our shop. And like you said, they've learned a lot by doing this. So they have certain trucks for different operations. But it's amazing how the dealer body has adapted to this.
And what percentage of that mobile service is commercial versus retail?
A high percentage.
That's right. And
a
that's
high
where
percentage.
And it's not just because of the need. It's because of it's the margins of going to one place and finding, 50 trucks or 5 trucks to service. So it's very mutually beneficial to the margin for the dealership as well.
Jim, isn't it great how the dealer is innovative and is resourceful and always seems to figure a way? And this is a great opportunity, like you mentioned, F&I was years ago. Now it's in commercial.
Well, yeah, that's the great part of our business, and that's what I've always loved, the dealers. From that standpoint, today's everybody last month they were all talking about tariffs. of course, it's a concern. The dealers will find a way. They did during COVID. They will always find a way to see the future. And that's why the manufacturers that think some dealers aren't necessary are going to lose. And the franchise dealer system will be here much longer than we will.
And let me say this, Kathryn, what vehicles did we see during COVID that were on the streets running around? Were they personal cars? I don't think so.
I think it's what really triggered, like I've spent since in 2007, I started publishing Ford Pros magazine, which we created. And it was all about commercial.
Wow.
But no one acknowledged that commercial was a thing, really.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I think that happened that people recognized, A, that it really existed, and B, the other thing when I would talk to folks about it, about why aren't you investing at an OEM level in more commercial, they'd say, well, it's a steady business. We don't have to. I'm like, wait a minute, that does not make logical sense to me. And but the retail people, we have to spend a lot of money to figure out how to talk to them. Of course, they're irrational, as we all know, Roger, right? So then they started realizing that if it's a steady business, why wouldn't you invest in that? And think about it in the dealership market, right?
Well, and I have to tell you, instead of chastising dealers for being a legacy business, I look at it this way, Kathryn and Jim. I look at it as a very many moving parts of opportunities, moving opportunities. There are so many opportunities. My focus is fixed operations. I spent 1 year selling cars so I could walk in their socks, and I immediately headed back for the back end, which is the new front end. All right. And I have to tell you, the one thing that I'm always been looking for as a rational customer, we may even have to give the dealers some counseling on how to deal with rational customers. I'm kidding about that. I'm kidding.
Yeah, well,
Maybe
Ted,
not.
you asked what we can do. Work Truck Solutions is absolutely available anytime to help a dealer assess their business opportunities and what the steps are. Happy to provide the playbook, but also really dive into the market specifics for them.
And they're the only ones that I've found that will do that. Ted, I'm really grateful that we gave this segment of the business some time, and I hope we give it more in the future.
Jim, I'll give you the last word.
The last word is stick with Ted Ings. He's been a foundation of fixed operations for as long as I can remember, and he knows what's happening. So listen to what he says, follow it, and you'll be successful.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We'll leave it there. Kathryn, Schifferle, Jim Press with Work Truck Solutions. Everybody can learn more on the web, worktrucksolutions.com, worktrucksolutions.com, info@worktrucksolutions. Roger Conant, thank you so much for being a big part of what we are doing here today. Work Truck Solutions, everybody, here with us today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
one, my owner has treated me so well, like one of the family. When it was time for my first oil change, she checked out bgfindashop.com. Over 50,000 dealerships and shops use high-quality BG Automotive products like MOA Oil Fortifier to help me run better, longer. When you maintain your car, it'll take care of you too. So visit bgfindashop.com. Their auto experts know which BG products will keep your car happy. Be good to your car with BG. Visit bgfindashop.com.
Kick it into hyperdrive with the Volie panel filmed live at our Niello pop-up event.
Welcome back to the Pick Stops Roundtable. I'm Sarah Bantine here with Ted Ings, and today we're going to be talking more about BDC with Volie and the incredible team at the Niello company. Ted, I'm looking forward to all the conversation we're going to have.
Sarah, I know you know a little bit about this topic, and we're really honored, first of all, that Tully Williams has us in here at the Niello company in Sacramento, and of course to have our great friend Scott Davis of Volie with us. Scott, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And we have another gentleman with us on the panel today, Tully.
Yes, we do. So Carl is our manager of our BDC. And I'm telling you, Carl has turned around our BDC. We started from scratch. And honestly, we never thought we'd be where we are today. So last month, answering over 18,000 calls, making those 40 appointments per person every day. So Carl, you're doing an incredible job for us. Then again, I don't think we could do without Volie, could we? No.
Well, Carl, let me ask you this first question. You know, you have a lot of calls coming in and out of your ADC, but how does Volie help dealerships really improve the customer outreach and the communication?
It's just so much more efficient for the agents because Volie helps to preload our queues and the agents know who to call each day. And when an inbound call comes, we know for which dealership it is and what queue they're calling in for. So we kind of have a little bit of insight before the agent answers the call.
And Tully, I imagine that there's a lot that goes into the whole communication process from the time that the customer, calls in initially to the ongoing communication. Can you share with us a little bit about how the BDC strategy has evolved?
So the first thing is that you have your inbound calls. And honestly, when we first started this, inbound calls was not our priority. Our priority was making outbound calls, right? And our outbound calls is, are we calling the people that had declined reds, right? Are we calling people that haven't been in 11 months or 12 months or 13 months? I believe that email does not work. And my belief is that if I have Carl and his incredible team call everybody through Volie and call them to make their next service appointment, we will get much better results. Because when we make that phone call, what do? We send a text and an email chaser on the whys. Plus, we could track that process. We're going to get better results. So it started with outbounds, not inbounds. Inbounds is just the icing on the cake. And the nice thing about it is our team, because we have somebody, we can get those phones answered. Our goal is that we talk every day is how many voicemails did you have? And our goal is, of course, to have 0, because if there is a voicemail, we'll respond to that customer usually within 10 or 15 minutes. But the goal is how do we drive retention and how do we drive? So the greatest thing I think that we see with the BDC is that if we get the person on the phone about 40% of the time, there's a 50% chance that I'll make an appointment. And to me, that is an incredible number that Carl and his team does.
Scott, what are you seeing that are the biggest challenges that dealerships are facing right now in terms of BDC and drop rate?
Yeah, there's just a lot going on in your BDC. They're forced to do a lot of things in the dealership. Before Volie, I'd like to say, we've given them the tools to be successful, to have visibility to what's going on.
and to put a strategy in place that they'd follow.
Well, and Carl, thinking about the challenges that a dealership faces, what has been, some of the biggest challenges that you've seen in your role, and how has Volie helped you really work through that?
The outbound outreach has been challenging to be able to get to all of our customers. And with Volie, it's just so much more efficient, and it helps the team to structure their day and to make those calls and do multiple follow-ups with the customers that we're not able to contact them on the first go-around.
Scott, metrics. Let's talk about that. What metrics should dealers be tracking? And I know you've given us so many metrics and new metrics I wasn't even aware of in the last couple of years on the Fix Ops Roundtable. But what should they be measuring to measure success?
Yeah, I think we log every keystroke, so we've got a ton of data, but some of the key ones, how efficient are your agents? This is a call, email, and SMS platform, but a lot of what happens with email and SMS happens automatically. How much time are they spending on the phone engaging with the customers? We do blended dialing. How are they converting on inbound calls? We know every inbound call, whether it's appointable or not. At a store like this beautiful store, a 1% increase in your inbound conversion rate is huge money, right? And then how effective are they outbound? 100 outbound attempts should be 35 conversations, 7 to 9 appointments. So a lot of that's pacing. So how efficient are the agents? How effective are they being at helping the people who are trying to do business with them? And then are they growing their business? Those are the basics. A lot of people in the past, they haven't had these tools and they say, well, gee, I've got a BDC, it's expensive. Or they just don't know how to manage it. So that's what I would do. Let me just add a little bit to that. So I think that when we look at metrics, and when Carl and I said, hey, I think we want to start a BDC, is that we wanted to build a forecast for us. And kind of what Scott mentioned is that we believe that 40 appointments a day is our target, right? That's where we'll be successful. Two is that it starts with a great team that Carl designed of people that actually care about answering the phone, right? And to me, that's another big piece of it. Because if you don't care about answering the phone, you're not going to make it appointees. And they got to love what they do. And then the next thing is the buy-in from the stores itself. If the store believes that we're making an impact for the store, it'll even be better success. And Carl, I feel that we have all three, don't you believe?
Absolutely.
So Scott, let me come back to you if I can. You work at a lot of dealerships, a lot of different sizes, some a lot smaller than Niello, some bigger. Okay.
Yeah.
How do you work with dealerships of different sizes?
Well, we're kind of a chassis, right? We're here to execute their strategy. So whether it's a single store with one agent who does outbound only to a large dealer group, these guys were able to consolidate into one BDC. These save a ton of labor doing that because answering the phone is about math. One of the keys, though, that I want to say, and to get off the Volie subject, part of why these guys do so well is because of their integrated attitude that they have in the dealership. Carl is part of their stores team. They get a ton of buy-in. Tully is really works with all of them really well. That's what it takes to do really well. But 100%. So.
Well, and Scott, just in closing and kind of thinking about the future, how does a dealership, like the Niello company, as they continue to grow and as they continue to add more components, how do you grow along with them?
Right now we make agents 2 to 4 times more productive. We've got some tools in place. We know we need to double that.
We had a customer who had an Audi for about 8 years, and it was their pride and joy. After much consideration, they decided it was time to replace that with the new one. It wasn't until about 2 weeks later when we called her that her plates were in that she realized, oh no, I left all my addresses and all my information in the car. At which point we easily diffused her by letting her know we partner with Privacy for Cars, and her data was gone from that car before it even saw the inside of our service shop.